to serve on my behalf on that commission. We are very elated and excited to have Ms. Sanchez join us on the Planning Commission. This is a great honor. This is a big role, and we're looking forward to your leadership. I enjoy bringing a new, fresh, young voice to City Hall, and there's nothing better that gives me delight to introduce Elizabeth Sanchez. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. I'll try to make this short and sweet. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I join your ranks in becoming the 3rd Ward Planning Commissioner. I want to thank Councilman John Valdivia for this great honor, this opportunity to be part of the Planning Commission and the committee of this great city. I welcome your advice and your counsel. I'm sure we will be able to achieve great things together. Bring on the projects, and thank you so much.
Very good. Let's take a picture. There you go, right over here, Cheryl. There we go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. We extend our appreciation to you and gratitude for your willingness to serve in our community. Back to the presentation of the proclamation. This evening, the Mayor and City Council hereby call upon all citizens of the San Bernardino community to take action and be prepared for a disaster or emergency by practicing their plans and join together as we proclaim National Preparedness Month, sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security. Next, we will ask the Chamber of Commerce to come forward. Leave with Yvonne.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Before we leave that item, I'd like the police chief to come up and talk about some of the things that we're doing to try to support emergency preparedness in our community, train residents to be active citizens and engaged in our preparedness efforts. And so with that, Chief, if you could spend a couple minutes talking about some of the things that are changing within our organization to ensure that we're able to respond effectively to disasters.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. So September is National Preparedness Month, and I think this is the first time that we've ever actually done a proclamation in support of that. The city has made tremendous inroads in recent years in terms of our preparedness. We've completely redone our Emergency Operations Center at the police station. We have completely updated our emergency operation plans as well as our hazard mitigation plan. We've enhanced our relationship with the county EOC as well as the state EOC folks. And then just as recently as last month, we finally brought on board a professional city emergency manager, Eric Caden, who is now a full-time employee of the police department taking care of professional emergency management. Eric has hit the ground running. He came to us from Riverside County, where he worked as the de facto emergency manager for some contract cities in the desert region of Riverside County. Comes to us with a great deal of experience, and just in the time that he's been on, he's obviously hit the ground running. He's met his counterparts over at the county. He's meeting his counterparts at other cities so that we can work collaboratively on issues. He's already had a train derailment to deal with and the challenges that come with that, and as well as a few other things. So this was something that Eric actually brought forward, the ability to do the proclamation for National Preparedness Month. It is a good reminder for all of us to kind of have our own houses in order and to be prepared for anything that may come our way. As many of you might be aware, the city does have a pretty robust CERT program. If you care to get involved, you can reach out to the Police Department of Emergency Management. We have a CERT program that you can get involved and be part of the solution in doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Yvonne?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Yvonne. I am here representing the San Bernardino Chamber of Commerce, but I am also a staff over at DoubleTree here in San Bernardino. So we welcome you all. If you haven't been to the property, please come on in and stop by. A few announcements here. For Friday, September 14th at 6 p.m. is the San Bernardino Black Culture Foundation Black Rose Service Awards Banquet, and it's going to be taking place at San Bernardino at DoubleTree. So please call for reservations at 210-6373. Thursday, September 20th at 6 p.m., the National Orange Show is holding the Wine Food Under the Stars. It's held at the Orange Show. It's a fantastic event. So if you all have a chance to attend, please do so. Tickets are on sale. And please call 888-6788, extension 488. On Thursday, September 25th at 5:30, we have the San Bernardino Chamber Egypt trip presentation, and that's going to be held at the Chamber office. So please call to our RSVP if you'd like to attend that. The number is 885-7515. And on Thursday, September 27th, we have the privilege over at the DoubleTree San Bernardino to hold the business after hours. And please come in, enjoy a networking night, food, fabulous prices. So everybody is welcome to come. So please, if you do want to attend, RSVP to the chamber at 909-885-7515. And last, don't forget to mark your calendars for the 6th annual Rendezvous Back to Route 66 on Saturday, October 6th from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. It is going to be held in the downtown San Bernardino the Court Street Square. And for more information, please call the Chamber office as well. Thank you so much and have a fabulous night.
Thank you. We will now move to public comments. Roger Henderson.
I haven't been here in about 4 months, I think. And I met an old friend of mine in the audience. I don't see him there now. That's a businessman. This city has been for years. He informed me that this city is going to buy about $460,000 of cars and trucks outside the city. That tells me that you're not interested in tax money for our city, and we badly need money in our treasury. Even though you might have a few million, we still got potholes. Still have vacant properties all the way down East Street with the idiot sticks still going through it. Nobody wants to be in the main street, the main part of town here. There's no business downtown, so why come downtown? Why we're buying automobiles outside the city does not make sense to me. As a businessman in this city, retired, as a representative of the Chamber of Commerce, somebody's out to lunch, about 4 people that gave 4 different stories of why they're buying cars and trucks outside this city. You want to lose business? Do exactly what you're doing, because you guys, as good as things may look, are not doing right by the businesses in this city. Other than that, I'm having a great day. San Bernardino.
Thank you. Nick DePasquale. Nick DePasquale.
Nate Pasquale.
I called up Nick DePasquale.
Well, that's a coincidence.
All right. So we'll get to you.
And I'm not sure, I don't see Nick, and he did say he had another meeting, so he may have had to leave. He thought Nate was going to speak on his behalf.
I can get up and talk again.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes expired.
But he is also aware that I requested those items be removed.
Thank you. Barbara Babcock.
Good afternoon, Barbara Babcock, 7th Ward. Same thing. I was just here to talk about and ask why Fairview Ford was not even on the list to give a bid. I think we need to really do everything we can to help our local businesses, and maybe I didn't get all the information, but I saw it on the agenda today, and I talked to Nick. And I just think we really need to be very business-friendly to our businesses in San Bernardino. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Penman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jim Penman, 221 East Marshall Boulevard, San Bernardino. Here speaking on item 22. Addition to living in the city, I'm with the law firm of Milligan, Beswick, Levine, and Knox, and we represent one of the applicants for one of the permits that would be affected by this ordinance. And we're specifically concerned about Section 5.10.150, which, when this ordinance passes tonight, as it will, would prevent our clients from having the opportunity, if they were turned down for a permit by the police chief or by the director of community development, to appeal that to the mayor and council. The decision it would be appealed to the city manager, and that decision would be final. The reason our clients want to have the opportunity to appeal, if necessary, to the mayor and council is because they were the ones who stood up and brought the lawsuit initially to set aside Measure O. The city at that time was planning to acquiesce with Measure O, and if they had not brought that lawsuit, the city today would not be where it is in terms of this, because Measure O would still be the law. In regards to some of these issues that are happening with the change from strong mayor form of government to city manager form of government, we're seeing more of this. And I've had people come to me and say, you know, I supported the charter change. I didn't support it for this type of thing. And a group of us have formed to repeal the new charter and bring in the old charter, bring back the old charter, so we don't have things like this. And my response has been, you know, I have a good working relationship with the current city manager. I've been able to meet with her when need be. I've been able to meet with her staff. And as long as that goes on, and as long as I understand that other people in the city have the same opportunity, I don't see any need to get into that fight. It's not something I want to do. I'm happy to do my business, represent my clients, and to communicate with the city manager's office when necessary. I hope that's going to continue. If it doesn't, you know, we all have to look at our options and where we are. But I have no interest in re-engaging politically, and I hope no one is going to put me in a position where it would be in my best interest and the city's best interest for that to occur. So I hope that the city will give consideration to all the firms fairly who have applied for the marijuana permits, but I certainly hope that you'll keep in mind that one of the applicants, without them, you would not be where you are today. This ordinance would not even be on the agenda. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me speak.
Thank you. Wendy McCamick.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City Manager, City Clerk, City Attorney. If a CCB applicant filed their paperwork correctly, they paid all the fees. In some cases, they generated 120-plus pages of documents at their own expense. In some cases, a CCB applicant got through Phase 1, possibly Phase 2, and in some cases, certain CCB applicants did not get to Phase 3. And in some cases, they got a letter like this that says you did not make it through Phase 3 and you have 10 days, 10 calendar days from the date of this letter to appeal. And the appeal request on the document that was generated by the city says description of legal and factual basis of appeal. Attach additional sheets if necessary. Well, when I called to ask how would one go about getting the documents that were generated to not advance a CCB applicant to Phase 3, I was told you must do a Public Records Act request. Let me say that again. If a CCB applicant filed an application, paid all the fees, and then was not advanced to Phase 3, they are told file a Public Records Act request as a directive from the city manager's office. I about fell off my chair. It takes 10 days to get that document. The appeals deadline is before that 10 days. How would one fill out this section, description of legal and factual basis of appeal without the information from the criteria that was generated through the consultant if they did not receive it back without doing a Public Records Act request. The appeals process, I get, is kind of a new animal here. And if you read the actual ordinance that I did not have time to print out, but Mr. Penman did for me, it is a little bit vague, and I get that you're trying to morph it into something that you would want for it to work for everybody. But what I have come to realize is that the CCB application process is completely subjective. Those points given are completely subjective. I'm not sure if you want tax revenue generation to be completely subjective. My belief was tax revenue generation should be based on the applicant's ability to fulfill city codes, the taxation rules, the city's code regarding taxation, the state's codes regarding taxation. Applicants, like myself, for instance, small business folks, been here 30-plus years, would really like a shot at doing business properly. We didn't pay a consultant $50,000 to put together that package that HDL read and gave points to better than a smaller applicant who just did it from being in business for 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Eilenberg.
Good evening. I realize this is something of an odd occurrence when Mr. Penman is saying don't do something and I'm the one saying good job, but here we are. I think that part of my responsibility as somebody who has been here telling the City Council when I think that it's done things wrong, it's also my responsibility to come and say when you're doing something right. I think on 22, you are taking positive steps. I actually do agree that there are further steps that may come up later, which is why, if the council will recall, I suggested not necessarily putting the matter on the ballot, but instead retaining that power with the City Council to be able to adjust. But I understand why the City Council made that choice. They wanted the voters to have some say, and if the voters voted in, then there is a level of comfort for people that they know what the ever-changing landscape will be. But I am here to say that I think that you are doing the right thing by moving forward on number 22 for a simple reason. It shows that you are putting your money where your mouth is when it comes to what you have put on the ballot. You are simply making current law match what is now going to be on the ballot. So I'm here to say thank you. I'm here to say good job. I'm hoping that we move forward with an approval on it. And who knows, it may be that there are more tweaks that come down the line as we see how this all shakes out, but I look forward to working together with you as I see we are now working towards a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Sanborn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On your resume, you said you went to Pacific High, graduated from Pacific High. Well, I graduated in 1960. 60 was one hell of a year in this town. Pacific High, I think you know if you looked at the gym. CBL champs almost in everything. We even had one person that went to the Olympics over there in Japan. And my point is to you, in talking to some of my classmates, this that you sent out is trash. And you know that, Mayor. You didn't get that from Pacific. It's just that simple. This is not Christian, if you understand me. You know, and when you go to church Sunday, you ought to ask the Lord to forgive you, and you should apologize to that guy. The other thing I want to talk about is Miss Miller.
Mr. Sandmore, excuse me. I did not put that out.
Listen.
That is a misrepresentation, and I
Mayor, you're taking my time.
I did not put that out.
I understand that. I know you didn't. And I will tell you this much. If you're going to run for office, make sure that the people print something that you have to approve it first. Okay? Otherwise, tell them don't send it out. It's that simple. Hey, try to have a little civility in this town. And to Mrs. Miller for Channel 7, et cetera, whatnot and everything, enough is enough. You need to move in this town. You live out of town. It's that simple. Come into town, move up to the north end there where the fireworks go off almost every night, shooting AK-47s. Somebody's got these, what do you want to call them? The big, No, they're worse than bottle rockets. They'll shake the house, they'll shake the windows. Yeah, right, exactly. Well, you need to come to town. Yes, enough is enough. Look at the streets. You know, if you get out of City Hall, drive Baseline, drive Highland Avenue and everything, they're trash. And then you turn around and say, hey, we're not like Redlands or we're not like Loma Linda. No, I guess you're not. You could spend an hour over there and not find a paper or a beer can or a bottle or anything else. And then like I told Fred earlier this morning, hey, he lives up on the mountain. He's lucky. He's up on Sky Harbor. 4 o'clock in the morning, they're going through the trash can. 5 o'clock, the next group comes through, going through the trash can. I mean, it's crazy. You need more cops. And to you, Mr. Police Chief, sitting on your porch up at Lake Arrowhead, you need to get them together. We need more cops. You need to tell her to hire more. And I understand what the problem is. You can't get them qualified. I got that. But hey, you know, when you're a business, like myself, you find somebody good, go steal them from another city and bring them here. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Choi.
Hello, Alice Chow, teacher with the San Bernardino City Unified School District, president, Dream Team Angels Rescue, volunteer, and our volunteer group is called the San Bernardino Animal Care Foundation. We have begun our volunteer program, and many of our volunteers are trained by kennel staff. So we have them coming in and cleaning the kennels, feeding the animals. There was an urgent need of wet cat food, pine litter, paper towels, and paper dishes. We put out a plea to our donors. We got our donations the next day. I delivered them, and we are getting them daily. One of our volunteers is actually a higher-up employee at the Mary S. Roberts Pet Adoption Center in Riverside. He came to clean our cat kennels because we did not have enough kennel staff that day. He was impressed with what we've implemented into our shelter. He is a past resident of San Bernardino. He's also worked as a supervisor for a Riverside County shelter, and he wants to assist us with our plan to move forward to making a better shelter for the city of San Bernardino because he says that the city needs it, and he would be honored to be part of our group. We have coordinated a professional groomer to come in on Thursdays to come and groom our pets at the shelter, and the pets need it because many of our dogs that come in have never been bathed ever in their lives. So you can't see their eyes. Some can't walk because their nails are so long. And so we have now a groomer coming in every Thursdays. This was done by our volunteer groups. We have submitted city shelter grants to Captain Green so that he can have the city grant writer begin applying for them so that we can get more money coming in for the shelter. We also would like to know how the hiring process is for kennel staff. 2 days last week, we had 1 kennel staff per day working. This is a very large shelter. Sometimes we get in 30 to 50 cats, sometimes up to 20 to 25 dogs a day. So 1 kennel staff is not sufficient. But luckily, we have been able to pull in 5 volunteers, up to 17 volunteers a day to assist with cleaning and feeding the animals. Another question is, when will the city release the shelter improvement funds? We have $600,000 in there that we will need to begin repairs that are needed. And we will be holding town hall meetings, inviting city council members to join us so that we can recruit more residents. We have many that are very interested in helping the city with the shelter. And you can contact us if you have any questions or want to be part of our team at sbanimalcarefoundation@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Khan DeCulia.
Hello, everybody. I want to repeat myself. I'm the founder of We Are the Change. We've been cleaning San Bernardino from illegal dumpings. And first of all, I want to say sorry for people that have been affected by the wave of violence that we have in the last few weeks. For the ones that lost loved ones, I want to say I'm sorry. And the ones that got injured, I hope they have a speedy recovery. And also, I want to thank Officer Michael Taylor. I'm always complaining about things, but also I'm quick to praise when somebody's doing a good job. And Officer Taylor has been doing a hell of a good job, and I thank him for that. Also, I want to say something about simplistic comment that I read earlier this week. A bureaucrat wants to criminalize renters, landlords, and absentee owners for the problem that we have with violence, okay? So, today in the news, he said that San Bernardino is the 7th worst city in the Inland Empire. It's number 176 in the nation. So I think that they take into account a lot of things, not only renters and landlords. So instead of pointing fingers, let's work together. So for the last 7 months, we've been cleaning the city for free. I've been paying thousands of dollars of my own money. And the city, so far, haven't done anything. Well, Virginia has helped, and so Fred and Mr. Valdivia have returned my call, and so the mayor. The rest, I'm still waiting for your call, okay? So let's not complain. Let's not complain. Let's do something about it. And it took me 9 months to get a meeting with staff. Thank you, Fred. But it was a waste of my time because they're not interested in fixing anything. So in the name of liability, the environment, and safety, is giving mediocre people a lot of excuses for inaction. So thank you.
Marilyn Bundage.
Hi, I'm here to complain about a lot behind me. A owner just recently purchased a lot behind me, and there's like semi-trucks, refrigeration trucks, and non-refrigeration trucks constantly idling all hours of the night and day. I had to call the sheriff's department one night because one of the truckers had a service unit out there working on his truck from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. Another night, one morning, the truck was idling from all the way to 3 o'clock in the morning, keeping me up all hours of the night. When the vehicles pull in, the lights are shining on my house, on my residence. And on that lot, those trucks, I guess they sleep in their trucks, and there's no public restrooms on that lot because the previous owner converted the house into an office. So I don't know where they're using their restroom at. I have talked to code enforcement, so they're checking into it, and I have talked to someone from air quality that's supposed to go out there. So whenever I go outside, I have to wear a mask because I don't know what I'm breathing in with these trucks. But that's what just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Ms. Bundage, what's the address?
The address on the property is 17847 Slover in Bloomington.
In the city of Bloomington?
Mm-hmm.
This is the city of San Bernardino.
Oh, okay. I thought they...
So I think that you probably need to follow up with the Bloomington. We can...
I'm going to have the police chief get your information, and we will forward that to the agencies in Bloomington and make sure that someone contacts you.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you. And again, the chief's going to get some information from you so we can make sure you get referred correctly. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Robert Porter?
Mayor, council, good people. I'd like to start off first by saying I I wish, Mr. Penman, you would have been on cannabis side back there when you had to raid the East Street dispensary. And when I first mentioned 4 years ago or 5 years ago to at Andy McCamick's mayoral campaign about that this cannabis thing, it needs to be looked into. But we're moving along a little bit, but it sounds like there's still a bunch of politics. I do want to see something positive. Thank you, Dr. Pierce and Juan Figueroa over there and their team. I think $10,000 is actually a little low, and I didn't expect that amount. But still a decent wage for you guys. I know you've been doing it on 60 and some change with your car allowances and suit allowances, so good on that. And you obviously pick good people. I'd like to thank the library for getting those 3 grants, not coming up with 1 grant, but coming with 3 grants. So that's what I want to hear more often, please. Enough is enough, I have to say. You guys got to realize, especially the city manager, since you don't live here, you're asking a lot of these people to risk their lives by telling them to rat out on the people in their neighborhoods. They have chosen to live there? No. They live there probably because the rent is cheap. Right? So when you ask them to rat, and then the police officers are only there for 5 minutes, an hour, half hour, what happens after they leave? Hence we get back to trying to get more than 11% of our police force to live in our city. How can we ask them, our warriors, nicely? How can we entice them with maybe rent subsidies or car allowances like you guys get? How can we get them to come live in our city? Because if they do, it will be the first step at change. The next step will be when they start spending all their money right here in our city. Think about that. All the people on those 17 pages of salaries over $100,000 with retirement moving back into the city and spending their money right here. Thank you very much.
Nate Pasquale.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Nate Pasquale. I'm here on behalf of the East Valley Association of Realtors. I'm not here to make any request of action, but rather to provide some information to the council and those in attendance on Prop 5, which is a ballot initiative on the November ballot. Prop 5, also called the Property Tax Fairness Initiative, is sponsored by the California Association of Realtors, and it allows homeowners 55 and over, along with the severely disabled and those affected by natural disasters, to transfer their property tax base to another home anywhere in the state, any price, as many times as they need to. Now, this is huge because 75% of homeowners over 55 haven't moved since the year 2000, and a big reason why is the massive property tax increase that they would face upon moving. They would see that tax increase because when you move, you lose your Prop 13 property tax protection that limits the amount in which your property taxes can increase each year. This is unfortunate because many seniors are often on fixed incomes and would like to move but can't because of the prospect of rapidly increasing property taxes. You could potentially see them double or potentially triple in some cases. Seniors tend to live in homes that no longer suit their needs. They're sometimes too large for 1 or 2 people. Sometimes they can't make it up the stairs anymore. Sometimes they live too far away from family and would like to move closer. This is important right now because California is facing an unprecedented housing crisis. Inventory is at a historic low, and the low inventory in conjunction with ever-increasing demand is pricing a number of homeowners out of the market, causing some of the best and brightest Californians to leave the state in pursuit of a more affordable house. Some of you may even have children who are doing just that. Based off of analysis from the California Association of Realtors, this would be a solution that would help alleviate this housing crisis. As seniors downsize to more suitable homes, it will free up inventory throughout the home ownership ladder, allowing growing families to move into larger homes and smaller families and first-time buyers like myself to crack into the market. Although Prop 5 will not be an end-all solution to this issue, it will undoubtedly be a step in the right direction, which is something that California desperately needs at the moment. Too many Californians, like myself, feel like home ownership is unattainable at the moment. And as many of you know, home ownership is a cornerstone of the American dream. Eliminating this unfair moving penalty would be a huge step in the right direction to increasing home ownership all throughout California. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I appreciate you giving me your time. If anyone has any questions about Prop 5 or how it will affect our community specifically, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at the East Valley Association of Realtors. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public speakers for our consent calendar and items not on the agenda. Start with Councilmember Mulvihill.
I have none, Your Honor.
Mr. Penman, you're speaking, you're not, right. Okay, thank you.
I thought it was 3 minutes, 3:20.
Did you have any to pull? Thank you. Councilman Mishret. Councilman Valdivia?
Yes, sir, just a few. Number 8, number 18, and 22. That is all.
Number 8, 18, and 22. Yes, sir. Councilmember Barrios?
None, Mayor.
Councilmember Marquez?
None, Your Honor.
With the balance?
On the consent calendar items, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Valdivia, the second by Mr. Mulvihill, and the item passes 5-0.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I apologize.
Yes,
I
City
did have
Manager.
to run to the ladies' room, but you took off the consent calendar the 3 items I requested be removed.
Correct.
12, 13, and 14.
Good, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's what
Thanks.
happens when you leave.
Item number 8 is to award a construction contract for City Hall parking structure, deck waterproofing to Angelus Waterproofing and Restoration, Inc. Mr. Alex Kushida, Mr. Valdivia, did you have some questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. Just a few questions. Is this was a bid that was awarded, or is this just a direct award to a preferred vendor that we have on file?
This project was bidded, and we received, I believe, 4 bids on this project. So this is the lowest apparent bidder.
Okay. And my recommendation to staff members and Ms. City Manager is that we optimize parking structures in the community. For many, many years, we have always said that we'd like to invest the resources so we can optimize these parking structures. I think they're a cash cow waiting to be had. And if we can somehow leverage our relationships as a revenue generator, I think it's increasingly important, especially in these austere moments, that we need to really look for opportunities. So I would really welcome the opportunity to entertain some proposals on how can we, what are our opportunities and how can we leverage our relationships so that we can optimize this parking structure. $500,000 roughly, is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
About $500,000 here just to waterproof. My other suggestion, is there an opportunity to somehow sell off this parking structure to make revenue? And can we partner with other agencies so that we can leverage those opportunities, especially the parking structure and the fees associated with it?
So there are a whole host of opportunities there at the parking structure. You've identified some of them. What we're working to do right now is we do have a very expensive asset and we know that there's water intrusion, and that's why we're trying to move on this one pretty quickly, because it is affecting the structural components of the parking structure, and so if we don't preserve it, then it won't be available for anything. The city also has some very long-standing historic agreements with some of the buildings in the downtown to provide parking. So there's an agreement for the hotel to provide parking, although it's closed now, but that agreement still in its existence. And we have other agreements with Vanner Tower and a number of agencies.
Are they paying customers?
In some cases, no, and really in all cases, no. I mean, no one's really covering the true cost.
In all cases, no.
In all the cases that we have agreements, there's no revenue being generated, and so we're looking at renegotiating those agreements. Some of them do have terms that still have a significant amount of time on them. Others are coming due in the near future, and we start having those discussions with those key partners. We understand that you use this to meet your parking obligations, but we also have an obligation to maintain this facility available to you, and to do that, we need to have revenues that at minimum cover our costs. So again, we're beginning to explore what agreements we have, pulling those now, understand what we've obligated, what we've not obligated, what capacity there might still be there, and then plan to sit down and renegotiate those agreements.
And is there an opportunity, having said what you just informed us of, is there an opportunity for us to even do a cost-benefit analysis on the sale of the entire structure?
Yes.
So that we somehow say, okay, this is what we can gain from revenue from shareholders or community members who aren't paying, but now let's get them re-upped on a paying contract, and then leverage that opportunity for an appraised value of how we can optimize this. That's my goal, is how does this city make money, and how can we turn a profit for taxpayers?
Right.
Our customer is the taxpayer, and that's kind of my goal here is, $500,000. I'd like to see somehow we can recoup the cost.
Yes, we will certainly do that analysis, again, as we really understand what obligations we have. The other opportunity that we would have to think about is if we were to sell that asset, we would need to reserve out parking spaces for us, because we do park hundreds of employees there, city employees. So again, we'll do that analysis and then present some recommendations to you.
And certainly the waterproofing adds somewhat of investment into hard asset. So I think maybe we can recoup our costs or spread it out or amortize it when we re-up those contracts, would be my guess.
Yes.
And I hope that your professional expertise and all that good stuff as we negotiate it. So, and what's the timeline, and how will these be affected? The timeline on the waterproofing, is there a schedule? What's the timeline, and how will it inconvenience our neighbors who may pay or may not pay, but how is it going to inconvenience them?
Well, you know what? The project will be taking about a week and a half to 2 weeks. So we'll try to schedule it when there is no meetings, such as commissions or council meetings. So I'm saying about 10 working days, the project will, and that will happen mid-October.
Okay.
And it's really just that top deck.
Just the
and
top.
so
It's
we'll
just
just
the
ask
top one.
people to park on other floors.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Move for approval. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes.
On item 8, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Valdivia, the second by Mr. Mulvihill, and the item passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next is item number 18. This is to adopt the resolution 2018-250 of the Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino, establishing salaries for the Police Department ranges P2, P3, P4, P5, and P6, P7, and law enforcement trainee effective August 1st, 2018. Mr. Valdivia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the backup analysis that I read on packet page 678 under discussion, the operative word that I read is within the coming months. So are we voting on something and entrusting that you'll carry out the survey and report back to us, or what are we voting on here tonight?
Here tonight, you're really approving the 3.5% increase that you've already really approved as part of the MOU, recognizing that we are still working with the association to do the required survey. And so if it's determined, and Helen can walk through the survey groups and things, but if it's determined that the increase should have been higher, then we would come back to you with an adjustment. So this evening, you're really approving the 3.5% that's included within the MOU.
So if it exceeds then the 3.5, then you'll come back for more authority.
Yep.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Any further questions?
Excellent job, Helen.
Motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
On item 18, the motion to approve is made by Mr. Charette, the second by Ms. Marquez, and the item passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next is item number 22. This is the final reading of ordinance number MC 1503, amending Chapter 5.10 of the San Bernardino Municipal Code related to the regulation of commercial cannabis activities. Councilman Valdivia?
Thank you, sir. The concerns expressed by some of our public, and I have certainly received some emails and calls on packet page number 765, 5.10.150 under appeals, line item 21, 22, and 23. Then I draw attention to packet page 770. My apologies here. Bear with me. Back at page 810, the appeals. I'm a little confused here. Are we going with the former or the latter of my call out on the page? I'm just confused here. So, thank you, because I lost my page. 765. So, oh, okay. So, the appeals clause on packet page 765, compare that with packet page 810 under appeals. Maybe I'm missing something. Why is it repeating? And is there a former version and then this is now today's version? Okay. 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 And it is the same. I just wanted to verify. And Ms. City Manager, perhaps you can provide some explanation here on the very question that was presented or asked upon earlier. As I read it, unless specifically provided elsewhere to the contrary, any determination of the Chief of Police or Community Development Director or the designees of either of them may only be appealed to the City Manager, which decision shall be final. Can you explain that? Because my understanding was that we provided direction to you with no objection that the final appeal shall be sent to council.
Well, there are a couple of things. One, this is an appeal, and I would ask you or suggest that you look at, if we're using 765, which I think is the red line version, but the appeal, unless provided elsewhere, but then you go to the second or the next page, the appeal hearing. So once there's a written appeal, that it shall be set for a hearing before the city manager, or if delegated to the hearing officer, they will conduct a hearing pursuant to the procedures that you've specified. What the council, I think really what you're referring to are the standards for review that you provided to me. So remember, you provided certain guidance to us, and one of the items of guidance was that as we were reviewing these applications, you wanted us to take certain things into consideration. And once we did that, then we make recommendations to you, but ultimately, every one of those items is going to be given to you. The question that came from the audience, though, that we are going to spend a little more time checking into is this requirement that they request the documents from us through a PRA because of the time constraints related to that. So they should have the ability to receive the information from us, understand as we evaluate the criteria provided by the mayor and city council, they should have the benefit of what that analysis was as they're appealing these decisions. But ultimately, you are going to see all those applications. You'll just see where they stopped in the process.
How it sounds to me is, maybe I'm wrong, and so please interrupt and correct me, because this is a working session, I feel, is that if somehow at the counter, meaning your counter, your desk, your office, or the counter of the police chief, or the counter of the community development director, that if the counter somehow receives application, they have the delegated authority to go ahead and deny it. Is that an accurate assumption? Because if that's the case, how does it then come to the council? And how are we aware of that?
Remember, one of the other things, and maybe it's illustrative if we walk back, because remember, there's a significant amount of cost to the applicant. And so what we were trying to do is to avoid a situation where someone had to put all their fees in place at one time, because, remember, that may be several $1,000s. So we want them to get through the various stages and only have them pay for that portion of the investigation that needed to be completed at that stage of the application process. So if in fact we get to stage 2 or phase 2 And there's a question, as we've applied the criteria that the council provided to us, we may then administratively deny that, but that doesn't mean that we're not still going to present all that to you. It just means that they have a right to appeal the recommendation at that stage, and if they want to pay the fees, they can move forward. We just remember we're trying to be sensitive to the fact that some people said, gosh, if I'm not going to make it all the way through the process, I don't want to have to pay all those fees only for you to tell me that I didn't make it through the.
Well, and the proverb, the abiding proverb that I love in business is no is a second best answer. And that's essentially what you're saying, is that if in fact they don't qualify, you're going to tell them no.
Right.
And you have that authority, but somehow it'll still
But
come
it's
back
still
to
going
you.
to come to you.
Okay.
With, hey, they didn't make it any further in this process, because we don't want them to pay fees. The goal in that part of the process is not as a revenue generation tool. Remember, it's really just to cover our administrative costs in investigating that. It really wouldn't be appropriate if we don't think they're going to make it into future phases to have them pay any more fees. That doesn't mean that we're not going to explore all those with you, though, so that you see where they stopped in the process.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Councilman Surratt?
So, again, I have kind of, I think, been on the same page as my colleague here, that any denial at anywhere along the way would be, there would be an appeal available to that party, that ultimately the appeal would come before us.
You would see the application that the appeal.
We'd see it after it's been denied.
Yes. And you can
And then-
overturn that.
Oh, and we can overturn that at that point.
If you decide,
But-
gosh, you stopped at phase 2 or the second stage, I think we call them phases or stages, it stopped at that point, they appealed it, we still denied it, you're still going to see all those, you're just going to see the administrative record.
So we're going to be shown a party that was denied and told why, and at that point, we can say, we don't want to deny that, we want, so everything, whether it's denied or not, I mean, at that point, they maybe have not paid some of the fees.
Right.
But we could then say, we'd like you to go back and look at these people, talk to them, and consider them.
My goal would be to give it to you, because at the end of the day, it was the council that would be issuing these permits.
Right, but then they hadn't paid any of the fees because you've stopped that.
Right.
So
So
then,
you may want them to go back and have us finish the investigation, yes.
so that particular applicant would be aware that it's going to be before the city council, and it's not going to be in the form of an appeal like from a planning commission, it's really going to be already denied.
Right.
And
But you're gonna still
we're going
see
to have
that.
to overturn the denial. They're not going to come before us and make a case.
No, you're going to have to just say, we disagree with the rationale that you've applied. We set forth those criteria, but we don't agree with how you've applied them. We want to give consideration to this one.
As long as anybody that wants to question staff's denial or rationale for denying them gets to us, I'm okay with that.
And our goal would be to tell them when we're going, everyone who's applied, to tell them when we're going to present these to the council. So if they want to speak on it, they can certainly do that. We're just trying to apply the criteria that you provided to us in the best way possible. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you've provided guidance to us, but you can certainly.
And you know, I always, not always, but I generally defer to staff, and that's what you're paid to do, and we've given you direction, and you're going to carry it out. But I think in this particular case, there's going to be a lot of people that are probably going to be denied that are going to feel as though they should not have been, and I think they should have an opportunity to come before us and say, this is why I was denied and I don't agree with it, and let us make some sort of a final determination.
And again, I think we at the end of the day, I think we want to work on it, and I'm not talking just about cannabis, I'm talking about with really everything that we do. This is not an adversarial relationship.
Right.
You expect me to apply criteria, you expect me to use our best professional judgment. We also understand that there are policy decisions that you need to make, and I am never going to be offended, and I'm sure Sonia would say no, Terry would say no. We're not going to be offended if you say, gosh, as the policymakers, we disagree with that.
Right.
We think that this is not going to have any deleterious effect on our community, and so we're going to actually recommend approval of these applications. So again, our job is to apply the criteria that you provide to us, the guidance that you provide to us in the best way possible, set forth our professional judgment, explain to you why we came to the recommendations recommendations that we did, and then certainly you can choose.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Barrios.
Thank you, Mayor. So kind of wrapping it up so I can understand, because now I'm like, what is this doing? What are we doing here with this approval of?
It's the second reading of an
What
ordinance.
impact is it going to have? What changes are going to?
You actually adopted that already to put it on the ballot.
Okay.
And so the discussion that, and I apologize if you weren't at that meeting, but the council directed that we put it on the ballot, so you adopted a resolution doing that. And then in addition to that, the council made a determination that you wanted to also adopt those regulations, because you do have the police powers to do that. You want to adopt the regulations, and so it's held a first reading, and this is the final reading and adoption. And so it would be
Okay.
enforceable 30 days after, and you made various changes, and that's part of the reason why Councilmember Valdivia said, why do they look the same? Well, because we tried to give you in this, so you see the red line version, the changes that you made prior to placing it on the ballot, and then the changes that you wanted to make as it ran through its regular process with the council adopting it, so you have the red line version, and then you also have the clean version, if that's easier for someone to look at.
Okay. No, I just apologize. I just haven't had much sleep in the last 36 hours. But, okay, because I'm just concerned, because I've been getting phone calls too about the process and what's going on, that we are using integrity and not letting outside influences or organizations give direction, because it's politics. And I'll be looking closely at everything that comes before us to make sure that we're doing what's right.
Now, remember, that's one of the reasons why you provided us those guideposts, though, in the
Yes.
ordinance. So, we aren't swayed by the political influences, and that's certainly the reason why I think it's important that you see every single application,
course.
because there may be political influences there. There may be things about that particular application that you're aware that you determine, really meet the criteria that, in spirit, at least, that this council adopted. So our job is really just to apply the criteria that you provided to us without outside influence. In fact, my contract specifically says that I'm not going to be influenced by outside forces. I'm going to give you my best professional recommendations, informed by our city attorney's office and informed by the staff, who are all professionals in their right. And at the end of the day, you need to make the decision for the council.
And Mayor, if I just may add, I'd just like to let you know that I have actually significant experience in processing these types of applications. And it is a real possibility that it becomes very litigious, because there's a lot of money involved and a lot of decisions are involved. So I'd like to just counsel the council to keep in mind that as you go through this process, to stick to that criteria. The criteria is so important. And of course, there's some that is subjective, but we really tried to be objective in this process, and there really needs to be a great deal of respect given to that. There actually has to be a great deal of trust, because the moment that we go through a process where your professional staff has given you a recommendation based on the criteria, and the moment that you might question that criteria, or question how they reach those conclusions, you begin to open up that door, right, for someone to say, wait a second, I was treated unfairly. So lots of accusations will be made if you go into this process knowing that. There's going to be lots of accusations of unfairness, of insider trading and dealing. And so the more that you can really stick to that criteria, and I will help counsel staff through this process, that every decision is backed up with an explanation so that you understand
Great.
how those decisions were made, so that you can make a good final decision.
And who's reviewing these applications and processing them? Because I've heard nobody knows, and that it's a variety of different people. I've got a lot of different answers for that.
Remember, the council recently, during the budget process, and also at our meeting the other day where we explored this again, you agreed with allowing us to use HDL, the consultant, to vet them. Our planning department certainly is providing some support, because there's a variety of information that they need, zoning restrictions, location and proximity to different types of uses, and what the distances are.
So it's HDL.
So HDL with the support of our planning department.
Got it, thank you.
Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, if an applicant is denied, would it be treated as a quasi-hearing?
What I would recommend, just given the sensitivity, it could either be before the city manager, or it certainly could be before a hearing officer. It depends. But yes, it would be treated as and the standards are listed in there.
Right.
The standards for that hearing are listed, and there would be a de novo, I believe, and Sonia can.
Say de novo, and is actually specified in section 5-10-170, that's de novo hearing.
Got it. This is kind of uncharted waters.
Yes.
So we're kind of treading lightly because we want to make sure we do it fairly and equitably for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Valdivia.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Miller, the other growing concern that I think we've touched on it a little bit, our city attorney has indicated about the criteria and the idea and matter of subject, this item being subjective. Is there a protocol book? Is there a policy manual? Have we developed one so that in the event that we're questioned, or your office or whoever is reviewing the matter somehow has a set criteria, protocol policy book that is updated so that we can stand the test of litigation and we can stand the test of kind of the rumor mills that will happen? What say you on the item of being objective? I mean, certainly this provides some guardrails, but what's the meat on the bone? And I'm not asking that we review them today or now, but do we have those in place?
No, we do not. Not to my satisfaction, nor to, I think, to the city attorney's satisfaction. You know, this is a relatively new issue, not just for San Bernardino, but certainly throughout the state. So we're kind of developing those policy guidelines now. The staff is working through the process. This is the first time that we've done this. We realize that I don't care how much time you spend developing a piece of litigation or a law, there's always things that you didn't really anticipate or were unintended, and so we're trying to work through those and understand, you know, certainly enforce the code that you've adopted and you're providing to us, but also have a level of flexibility so that we're developing good standards and good processes. So I see us, we're kind of doing that as we go. Remember, if you look at the history, you know, this was an item that we had been talking about for some time period, and then we really got to the point where we were formulating an ordinance. So it all moved fairly quickly. We were busy dealing with the ordinance and not so much the policy guidelines. So we're developing those as we go. I think in a perfect world, we would have had the ordinance and some policies at the same time, but, you know, certainly nothing is all, I mean, it's always good to hope for that, but it doesn't usually happen.
Continuing on with the appeal process, I hear what you're saying, Andrea, but the written ordinance somehow, I think, contradicts what you're saying, because it suggests that what you're just telling me is that we have ultimate, it'll come before us, but let me read you the other side of the coin and how that contradicts what we have just heard.
What page?
Page 810. It goes into a step-by-step processes of written requests for appeal, section 5.10.160, written request for appeal. So this is the trigger which the applicant who gets denied then has this process afforded to them. Within 10 calendar days after the date of the determination or the letter received, an aggrieved party may appeal such determination by filing a written appeal with the city clerk, setting forth the reasons why the determination was not proper. If no appeal or determination is made within the 10 days, the determination shall be final. It goes on, section B, but notice the appeal hearing. That's the actual setting. The 5.10.160 suggests simply the process in which to appeal, but now we go into the appeal hearing, so that if the written appeal is heard and there is a motion and set forth on a date to hear the appeal, here's what it reads. Upon receipt of the written appeal, the city clerk shall set the matter for a hearing before the city manager, or if the appeal has been delegated to the hearing officer, before the hearing officer. The city manager or the hearing officer shall hear the matter de novo and shall conduct the hearing pursuant to the procedure set forth by the city. Then it continues on and suggests that D, it's all within, it doesn't seem, and respectfully, I'd like.
It's, and I think part of it is because you're reading specific sections and taking them in specific context as opposed to looking at the ordinance as a whole. You notice in other, and I'm looking for the one that actually refers to the city council, but ultimately, I think it starts with page 807, 5, or 811, 5.10.090, application procedure. conduct initial evaluate, that the city staff and her designee are responsible for preparing forms, processing, soliciting applications, conducting initial evaluations of applicants, and to ultimately provide a final recommendation to the mayor and
Where are
city
you
council.
reading? What
It
line?
is, line 7 through 9 or so on packet page 807.
Uh-huh.
And again, throughout, it talks about the city council being the one that is the one issuing the permits. And I'm looking for the specific section, but again, it starts there where it starts talking about that ultimately I'm only making recommendations to the mayor and city council.
If I may, Ms. City Manager, so it seemed to me that the reason we've kind of come up with what might be confusing to some
Right.
is that you were trying to address an issue of being fair to applicants, so you were almost setting up kind of a halfway point for them. And so some people read this appeal as being the final appeal, but it's not. This is kind of like, I guess, an interim
It's an
appeal
interim
step.
appeal.
So if an applicant comes forward, they're going through the process, and the police chief or staff, a member of the staff makes a determination, which may be that it doesn't look like this is going to be such a strong application, they can appeal that then to the city manager. But if the city manager upholds that staff level determination, then that applicant takes the risk of going forward in this process and coming before you with what's going to be a negative recommendation.
Right.
But I think that in that appeal process, as I'm hearing it, was designed to give them that opportunity. We could have just skipped that. You could just completely take that out, and we would have taken this forward. And it would have just been the initial staff recommendation, no opportunity for appeal, and they would have been ranked very, very low. So I think the appeal process that's in here is allowing this interim step. But ultimately, everyone will go to the council. I would say, however, that if you're getting a negative recommendation from a staff member that then goes through the appeal process to the city manager or the hearing officer through an objective process and it's negative, I would just say to that applicant, why are you spending the money to go forward? Because when it comes before the city council, if the city council is honoring the ordinance and honoring the criteria, there shouldn't be a different decision. And if there is a different decision when it gets there, I'm going to suggest that you may have some issues with liability or lawsuits, because someone's going to say, how did that happen? You're not adhering to the criteria. So I think that's where the confusion is that this appeal is an interim step, and it's supposed to be designed, and it's a little unusual to have it, but it looked like it was designed to give them a kind of a second look.
So on packet page 765, thank you, Ms. City Attorney, appreciate it. 765, the old version, the red line version, then suggests, which I guess we're not reading here, but I'm trying to compare it with 810. And maybe there's some confusion
They're
here.
exactly the same.
Are they?
Yeah, just one's a red line version, and maybe that's confusing. Maybe we shouldn't give you both, but one's a red line version and one is the final version. So 765 is the,
Okay, yeah, it is the same, okay.
yeah. And again, I apologize, maybe it wasn't that easy, but we gave you, just some people like it in the final version at a second reading, but I knew that you may still want to see the changes, so.
Okay, well, you've made some strong assurances and commitments here verbally, and I appreciate that. Thank you for
They're all gonna come to you.
hearing me and assuring the community, and certainly the business investment community, of the process. So thank you.
And then just one, and I think Sonia has one final comment as well, but we are going to look into, because again, we need to be able to provide the information to the community so they can file their appeals in a timely manner, and so we will work through that issue.
Yeah, and I guess, can I ask you a question, just since we do have the audience? We had a speaker that asked about this. Is the applicant asking for their own information that was submitted?
Truthfully, that's the first time I've heard about that, but it sounded like it was, and that's why I don't see any reason.
So if an applicant is filing an appeal and is asking for their own information that was submitted, I would assume they have their own information that was submitted, whether it's 10 pages or 500 pages, because they submitted the application, meaning they would have what they need to submit their appeal. If what the applicant is asking is, I want to actually examine everyone else's application to see whether my application was strong, there are legal issues that govern the release of information before a final determination is made.
I guess-
And so I just want to make sure I'm understanding the
I guess
issue.
I understood it to be, and again, we'll work through it to make sure that they get what they need, but I guess I understood it to be that they would want to know how the staff in HDL evaluated their application, their own, and again, I could be wrong, but I had the impression it was their own application, in which case we would want to make sure that they understand the
absolutely.
whys behind or how we applied the criteria.
Yeah, I would hope that as HDL reviews the application, that they have some type of written reason for why they are making their recommendation.
The intent is certainly not to not provide feedback.
Councilman Valdivia.
You know, the ultimate buck stops with us, and I respect that you acknowledge that and you say that. And I wonder if there is any compromise here. The check and balance certainly rests with us, and that's our job and that's our duty. You know, I've heard your assurances, and I appreciate that, and I think you're sincere and genuine in that commitment. Would it be possible, would you entertain omitting which decision shall be final on line number 3, packet page 810? Just omitting which shall be final? It's still,
I mean, it's on the ballot, so, and we cannot change the language that's on the ballot now.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, and I apologize, and maybe I can show you.
do you see where I'm referring to?
Show
Omitting
me.
just the clause, which decision shall be final. It's packet page 810, line number 3. Just omitting that, just for a final check and balance. But if we cannot, Ms. City Attorney.
We can't change it now.
Well, I mean,
on
if it was the council's intent to have an identical ordinance here that's going to mirror the one on the ballot, it wouldn't make, it would defeat that the purpose, which was to have something that was identical. I'm trying to think of a way that we might get the assurances that were made to you in writing in a way that would make you comfortable. And I'd be really happy to work with the city manager's office to produce what we call like an evaluation policy.
Right.
And in that evaluation policy state that the recommendations, that all of them will go to the city council, and that would be in writing, and that would be something that you'd have those assurances. It wouldn't be in the ordinance,
right.
but at least you'd have them in writing.
Right, and the other, and I think that's actually very simple to do, because, again, if you read throughout the ordinance, like, for instance, I'm looking at Section 090, it refers to the mayor and city council making a final determination on the permit. So if you look at packet page, Councilmember Valdivia, I know that you're looking 763, Section C. I mean, it references clearly that it's not my final determination. Section C, after initial review, ranking, and scoring under the review criteria, the manager or his or her designee will make a recommendation to the mayor and city council, and the mayor and city council shall make a final determination in accordance with, and that's your permit provisions. So again, sprinkled throughout, there is language about the council making the final determination. So I think it'd be fairly simple for the city attorney and the city manager's office to come up with something that would help further reinforce that.
We have a motion.
Move approved.
A second. No further discussion. Please cast your votes.
On item 22, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Mulvihill. It was seconded by Ms. Marquez. And the vote is 4-1 with John Valdivia voting no.
Thank you. We will take a 10-minute recess. Number 23, this is to authorize the city manager to execute a First Amendment to the professional services agreement with Westbound Communications.
Mayor, before we continue with that, I'm going to change
you're
my
out of
vote,
order, sir.
if I can.
Can you wait just a moment? Let me
Sure.
finish reading this. To increase the total compensation by $169,000 for an amount not to exceed $410,000 in fiscal year 2018-19. Authorize the city manager or designee to increase the purchase order for a total amount not to exceed $410,000, and authorize the Director of Finance to amend the fiscal year 2018-19 budget as outlined in this report. Councilman Barrios?
Thank you, Mayor. Before we do continue, I just wanted to change my vote to a no vote on item number, is it 23 or 22?
22.
On 22.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager, we have a westbound presentation.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I remember during the budget discussions, we had conversations about ways, and just to step back for a couple of moments, we had initially developed the proposed budget for this current fiscal year that we're in. There was a deficit. We were in a deficit position as departments made their requests using just normal growth and things like that. There was a deficit position. We were able to close that gap through some increased revenues that we had not really anticipated, as well as additional changes to the organization that we identified would enable us to reduce our operating costs. At the same time, the council asked that we look for other opportunities, because we knew that if we didn't continue to make structural changes to our organization and continue to build revenues, that we would be facing deficits potentially in future fiscal years. And so the council asked us to begin looking at other things that we could do to become more effective, produce additional revenues to the community, and through that process, we identified a number of opportunities, and one of those was to expand the agreement with Westbound Communications for communication services, reorganize the existing staff so we could reduce costs, personnel costs. And so this evening we're here to present that proposed amendment to the contract to you. But we thought it was also a great opportunity to have Carrie Gilbreth of Westbound Communications and Kelly, who've been our partners in this, and they have other staff members with them. It's been a great team, but a good opportunity to not only walk through the amendment that we're requesting, but also talk about some of the ways that we're enhancing the messaging. Certainly one of the council's priorities is to increase the amount of and availability of information to the community. I think they've done a nice job. I heard someone say earlier, hit the ground running. This is another group that's been able to be assimilated into our organization that's really hit the ground running. And so with that, Terry's going to just walk through kind of what we're doing with respect to the budget. And then Carrie and Kelly, and I think others, maybe Robert, is going to talk about some of the branding and communications efforts that were approved by the City Council. Okay.
There's actually no impact to the adopted budget at all. We're just moving some money around. As you can see on packet page 838, we had previously adopted or set the budget prior to the communications position being eliminated. So we're just readjusting the numbers, increasing the contract to Westbound, and they'll be handling several things that the previous communications manager was handling now. So as you can see, the bottom line has not changed.
And again, remember, we had talked about the idea of ways that we could expand the scope of services being provided through the communications program. With the existing deployment, we weren't able to do that, so we tried to find a different approach to dramatically expand our social media presence, our website presence, our response to incidents, including critical incidents like the one we experienced recently. So again, we've broadened the scope, so you'll see the amendment does dramatically increase the scope of their responsibilities, and then at the same time keeping the budget relatively constant with what it was as the adopted budget.
Thank you. Ms. Gilbreth? Could you turn your mic on?
Not used to that. Thank you, Andrea and Terry, Mayor Davis, council members, Mulvihill, Charette, Valdivia, Barrios, and Virginia Marquez. Thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you for entrusting us to be your communications partner on behalf of the city. I'm here with our team that's serving the city, which is Kelly Kohler, our account director. Kelly Imbriani, she's been married, and I am not fast enough to jump up on that. And Robert Chavez. who also leads our multicultural point for this. We wanted to share just some of the highlights on what we were charged with when we were adopted back in April, and then what we have been asked to expand regarding our services and where we are. We think it's very important that we're tied to measurement, and we think that's very important to be able to share with you. And so with that, we look forward to going through this relatively quickly, but look forward to giving you an update. So when we talk about where we are, what our charge was and what our charge is, from the research and branding, it is about rebranding the city. We have fully engaged and concluded our research efforts with focus groups and a survey that we're going to talk about. We are in the process of establishing the message. One of the things that we talked about in the last time we gave a presentation and that the council asked was to make sure that we are telling our own story now, that this is not being allowed to have someone else tell for us or define our narrative. And that's very important, and that is something we have already embraced. And then to give you updates on the ongoing communications that we've taken on. That now includes direct communications in the form of letters and emails, social media, media relations, which would be articles, segments, that type of thing, the newsletter, video services, design, and then other citywide initiatives. So it's been very robust very quickly, and when you talked about hitting the ground running, we have done that. And in front of you, actually, you should have the latest September issue of the newsletter that we're pleased to share with you right now. So the first step that we were charged with branding was on the research side, and that was to determine the vision of the future of San Bernardino. We wanted the people that we serve to be able to define that vision. And so we used sample questions that included what words come to mind when you think of the city. And you're getting a little bit of a preview with this council as we will be having a separate session with you later on, so you actually can think about them. They didn't have that option. How would you like to think about San Bernardino? If you could pick a single word to describe your vision, what would it be? What would it take to attract more business? And then there are other things that our city offers residents, businesses, and visitors at other places in Southern California don't do. Our point is to find our unique spot and how we define ourselves and how we will market ourselves accordingly. We used activities that included probing questions, word associations, advertisements. We actually went through the process of people created their own advertisements for the city of San Bernardino. We have some of those samples to share with you later. It was interesting to show what it was and really how positive it was, and the personification of the city. If the city were a person, what type of person would the city be? It starts getting you thinking about how we define ourselves. So the strategy for recruitment, focus groups, we had two with employees. Those were recruited as the city manager, and the mayor sent out an email. People were able to respond with their want and their willingness to participate, and also their why of why they wanted to participate. We had such an outstanding response. We moved from one focus group to two, held both of those. We utilized the business roundtable plus some additional businesses for our business focus group. Affiliated organizations, we realized that one thing that was very important is we have a lot of organizations that bear our name or work within our city, and as such, they're affected by our reputation. And so with that, we pulled together the heads of the school district, the colleges, the water departments, the healthcare systems, the county, and more transportation systems to be able to participate in that conversation. And then and the good part about that, just to share, at the end of that, all of those heads asked to be now engaged moving forward. The big ask they had coming from that is they said, we do not want you coming back and just giving us an update. We want to be engaged in the change of San Bernardino because we are invested in it and it benefits us as well. So we have our first meeting, the city manager does next month with them, and we are going to be engaging them in different topics. And that will be a real resource to us, which will be a benefit. Lastly, we worked with our residents. That was done through our research group, Public Values. That recruited a diverse group of 12 to 14 residents that spanned, we ensured that we were diverse in income, in longevity, in ethnicity, all of the above, so that it was truly reflective. And it was really, to be honest, great to see, because as they came, you didn't see, there were faces we had never seen before, and because of that, we heard new stories. And all the wards were represented. And to put, well, we'll go into the details later. I would like to share that the suggestions that the residents brought forward were the most positive and what they really want their home to be. And we look forward to sharing that with you in detail. The goal. Yep.
8 out of 12 of the residents have been in the area and here San Bernardino for 20 plus years. So they have seen the progression of what this community has been, what they want it to be, and where they want it to go.
And then with that, we accompanied all those with an online survey, and that was to solicit feedback from a larger statistical sample. And so that was open to the public. However, we advertised that heavily. We advertised that in social media. We had articles run in the newspaper, and then there were direct emails sent to our participating focus groups for them to have their employees. I would like to there were several that had their employees do that, but a special thanks to Omnitrans, as I actually had an employee come up and said, our boss wanted us to do this and it was important, and every employee filled this out. So that's important to know. For the focus groups, again, we talked about who those went through because they all intermix. It was important to get all of their feedback. The main top lines, and we're, again, not doing a report tonight, just giving a little sneak peek. The things that our focus groups cared about the most: safety, economic growth, community pride, and accountability. Our vision for the future: a vibrant downtown, become an all-American city, preserve the history and embrace the future. That was one thing that really stood out. Everyone really wanted to own their history and where that was going, and to make sure that we didn't forget our history moving forward. And the opportunity that lies ahead, mainly in the assets that we have that we haven't taken full advantage of yet. For the public input survey, the goal of that survey, initially by Public Values, was 400 responses. We ended up with 1,225. That was 300% over our projected rate for statistical validity. That was also done in English and Spanish. Things we care about, you're going to see a little bit of a repetition: safety, economic growth, strong leadership, and negative perceptions, with the vision of the future including a vibrant downtown, family-friendly, a clean city, and a place to live, work, and play. So our next steps with that, which we're really looking forward to, is actually doing some of these exercises with the council and then reporting to you, and then we will be starting the brand treatments as to what those findings have led into for a graphical perspective. Telling our story, that's something that we've all had the privilege of doing for many years, and thank you, Council, for leading the way with telling our new narrative and what that is. We are working on establishing the message that goes along with the brand, but I just want to know what you'll be used to seeing moving forward once that brand is established, is we're all going to be working on similar messaging and consistent messaging. You're going to see a message house from us, and that includes an umbrella statement, core messages, and then we will be not making any message, nothing will be said without proof behind it. And so that will be coming to you once that's finalized. However, we have used some very consistent messaging to date. Direct communication, and we use a typewriter because really what we realized and what the city is old-fashioned communication, and that hand-to-hand communication is very important. And with that, we have taken on a series of different letters to residents, businesses, affiliates, whether it be through the focus groups or through other means, and we're going to talk about one later, where we're actually using a door-to-door service so that we can communicate and actually put things in people's hands. So we're not relying solely on one method to communicate with people. We're relying on multiple so that we're able to reach them. Social media, this has been a huge area of focus and growth, and we've only had this now for 2 months in our hands. But we do want to do a little bit of a before and after on what the city, where we were before and where we are now 2 months later. So prior to that, Facebook, just as a means of background, is a social media platform the majority of San Bernardinians, and I'm one of those. It's a hard word to say. Prefer to use above Instagram and Twitter. And so instead of doing a lot of things across the board, it's very important we do one thing the right way and do it really well, and then we can expand. So before we had one-way communication, which meant that we were putting out messages, the city was putting out messages, but there was no ability for people to comment or engage. There was a lack of content. It would put the newsletters up, some events, but nothing in terms of a voice of the city. And then, again, as we just talked about, the platforms didn't have purpose or consistency, and there wasn't a policy in place that would be able to protect the city in terms of comments, to make sure they're respectful, and yet we want to encourage disagreement, but we want to do that in the right forum. Now we fully allow comments. They are encouraged, and it is great. It's one of the key ways that we are learning about the city, because people are very honest. We hear it from, we've had some very pleasant things in terms of positive momentum and what they're seeing, and we're getting very good calls for improvement and where we're falling short. And we need to be able to take that, and we need to be able to see where we can grow with it. And I'd like to thank Tanya, as we're working with customer service, we're finding out how to link. So if people make a complaint on Facebook or a concern, that we can link that to our customer service system so we aren't missing anything. So we've changed to robust content. There is daily postings now, many of which is about the city itself, and we have the Facebook policy in place. As a result, in 2 months, we've had a 78% increase in people liking different things on different posts on there, an 87% increase in comments, and an 80% increase in sharing that. So that means that every time they're seeing a message, they feel it's important enough to share with their own friends. The total page reach, which is people seeing it, has gone from 19,000 to 72,000. That's a 73% increase, and that will expand more as some of the direct costs that are within this extended contract will be to be on advertising on Facebook, which allows us to reach everyone in San Bernardino that's on Facebook, which can sometimes exceed 80 to 90,000, which is almost half of our entire population. Just so you know, the top posts, we started a first series. Everyone from our focus groups came in and commented that we aren't doing enough to celebrate our people. And so with that, and we're going to talk about video, we started our first series that will be a monthly video series honoring our people. This was one of the best. We also got the notice that we weren't doing enough to celebrate Western Regionals here. And so our first video came on a retired San Bernardino police officer, Jim Tassetti, and his wife, Darcy, who have for 35 years volunteered at Western Regionals and been a host family. And it is really exceptional as to what we were able to see with the reach to that. And that's just the first. The next one will be coming out next week, and it will be on the Cajon football coach, Nick Rogers, who was born here, went to school here, now teaches here along with his wife, his sister, his brother, and his retired mother, who was a teacher too. Another one is the survey. That was another means that we used to be able to promote that. And then when we talk about the work we're doing, this is very important. So this was one that we did on potholes so that we could give an update on where we are on potholes. It's the biggest concern. The quality of the infrastructure that we have is something that's major. It's why we made the investment in the capital improvement projects, and We thank Trish and Alex for working very closely with us so that we can get this out. And again, when we put this up, we got the positives on what was being addressed, and we got a lot of suggestions and reports of where we need to go with potholes. And so with that, we were able to convert that over to them so that then they're able to build that in. So we now have eyes in the city that have another means to report. The greatest post, which we've got to give credit to because it's about the people who work here and who care about being here, is your mounted posse and their own personal horses. They showed up on 40th Street, and it was as they rotate throughout the city. But our officers with that, it was exceptional. It went viral, and it just shows that when we care, people care, and they know they're cared about. And that was really a phenomenal thing.
And that is Buttercup in the middle.
It is.
And I think Roxy too.
And Big John.
And
Isn't Big John in there?
Big John
Okay.
and Buttercup are in that picture.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, I'll laugh. I'll give photo credit to this one on my husband, for my husband, who happened to be up there that day. And he said, "Can you believe what's here?" And then my daughter's playing with the horses, and he sent me the picture, and that's how we ended up with that. And so that's pretty neat.
We're using them in other areas of the city as well. So you'll see them throughout. We see them in the downtown. So again, you'll see them throughout the community. Hospitality Lane, I think during the holidays is a great area for that because of all the shopping. So, and it is amazing. People said that day, "Wow, we had so many police officers out." Well, we didn't. We had Buttercup and Big John. Deployment was the same, but Buttercup was out there. So again, we're trying to be a little creative to how we deploy.
And it responded incredibly well. So building the digital momentum of this is that we're now evaluating what's working, so we can keep what's working going, we can emphasize on that, we can change on areas that don't get as much traction, but more importantly, it does become a voice for the city, which, to Andrea's point, that was key for us, especially this week following what happened Sunday night, that we were able to put a statement out from the city that was not only responded to, and the conversation on that is strong and helpful for us as we evaluate ways that we're moving forward. But it was also something that the media was able to use directly, and that's important. This is something that's all on City of San Bernardino municipal government, so we do put new posts up daily, so any that you prefer to share, obviously, it gets the word out that much further to your constituents, which would be really valuable. We are building low-cost advertising campaigns. Facebook is the one medium that allows us to hyper-target, so we can absolutely target people just within the city. So that's very important to us. We're going to leverage new videos to tell our story and strengthen the foundation and build for other platforms.
And just to expand upon something or further reinforce something, I think that it's important that obviously we get information out about the different programs and services and what's occurring. But equally important, I want to go back to something that Carrie said. We're trying to build now those systems so that as we're seeing things, potholes, or as we share a story about potholes, and this is a great example, people begin to say, well, I noticed the one at the corner of Walk and Don't Walk. Now we're magnifying, we're able now to link that back into our own systems and make sure that we're being responsive to that. But hopefully we get to a point where we're catching those things without someone having to make a phone call. So it really helps guide and direct our efforts as well, and helps us to understand what the priorities need to be, because we're hearing from the community about issues that they have, and fortunately that gives us another mechanism to hear what their thoughts are without having to wait for them to call City Hall or to call the call center.
Yep. Traditional media, this is more so about our message than it is about anything else, as we're working toward that. So when we talked about the capital improvement plan, that was something very important that we were able to share, especially to the council's credit of adopting $107 million toward improving our roads and streets. That had a very favorable response, obviously, because the one thing people care about is making sure their roads are fixed, their trees are trimmed, and their streets are light. And that addressed just that. Then when we talk about Carousel Mall, that turned into how you could own a piece of history, as we had challenges with it, but we were able to move through it, which was great, and it became something that was memorable. And then, as we talked about before, as we were able to put statements out via social media, it allows the media then to literally copy and paste from that and use that. And so the Channel 7 story that ran yesterday as a follow-up to the Linwood used those quotes directly. I would like to give a little preview that you make sure that on September 19th, set your alarm for 4:30 a.m. Between 4:30 and 7 a.m., Leticia Juarez, who I went to school with, and is a reporter for Channel 7, will be doing a full live remote from Cajon High School from 4:30 to 7 a.m. about how she grew up in San Bernardino. So we will be featuring Norton Air Force Base. We will have Bernie out there. We will be talking actually about the Carousel Mall in the transition. Letty worked at the Carousel in high school. And so it's giving us the opportunity to talk about downtown redevelopment. And it's talking about directly about the things we're doing with our kids. So at 4:30 a.m., if the football team, the band, and the cheerleaders will all be out there, and Bernie. And Route 66.
Thank you.
Well, and Route 66. We're going to have cars out there.
Yes, we are.
So Judy, I will see you out there at 4:30. We will be very, it'll be a good one. So we'll also tape that and share that with you. But that's going to be a great win for our city, and we want to thank Letty for doing that. The newsletter you have in front of you, that has been transformed per se in the last 2 months, so that we're really, again, taking from our focus groups and our surveys and focusing on people. We'd like to thank Officer Sandoval for what he's doing with our kids, especially with cleaning up Waterman, and what he's doing to elevate our image from a regional perspective, because he's taking those explorers, and for the first time now, they're competing across Southern California, and we look pretty impressive when we go in, and that's a neat thing. Videos, this is going to be something that we're going to see a lot of growth in. We want to thank Clyde for really, as we've sat down with him and talked about kind of an open canvas on where we can go. We used to be very television focused, and we've moved to much more video in terms of what people want to respond to in terms of content. So right now we focus on sports. We do things like What's Up San Bernardino. That's done through YouTube, and then Channel 3, of course. We are expanding that to go to department storytelling, so that when people come in and they want to open a business here, one of the things they can do while they're waiting is watch a video to show the process and how easy it can be. Same thing with the planning process. Bettering San Bernardino will be doing short snippets of videos on different capital improvement projects, so that we aren't just telling people what we're going to do, we're showing them. One of the biggest things that we talked about as to why this was the right time for this is it's no longer about talking, it's about walking. And so we'll be able to do that. Also introducing pet adoptions and showing what those are able to do, and business profiles. Lastly, as we talked about Jim and Darcy Tossetti, our San Bernardino, our stories. These are now shown. We're going to be doing them through Facebook Watch. They're on the city's Facebook page, but then we'll be transitioning that into a channel as well. It will be on our website and then continuing on YouTube. That alone has expanded our reach by thousands, and we've only done one as of right now. So if you have not watched Tossetti's, we really encourage you to. It was a very nice first thing that makes you realize why they're in San Bernardino. It makes you realize why they care about this and how important Western Regionals is. Citywide initiatives, these are other things that we've been brought on that we realized needed to be packaged. And one of the things was there were a lot of questions, even as we hear them tonight, about cannabis and the regulations around that. We actually put together where we are with it so that there was a clear timeline to that. That's now available, and what the process is moving forward. And then also, one of the biggest things that came forward, especially from the employee focus groups, is we weren't doing enough to celebrate Western Regionals. So we moved quickly, but we had them welcomed on our billboard at the Auto Center, and then letters from the city were delivered to every hotel room where there was a family welcoming them to San Bernardino, telling them about the food history here, because I'm sorry, no one beats our food. And then we really want to thank, and if you go to Mitla, Mexico, Lucy's, or Lehman, thank them because they offered discounts for that, and they didn't stop there. We thought it was as important to welcome people here and feel good about being here as it is to thank the people who are up at the north end who are dealing with the increased traffic and what that means. And we also wanted them to be prideful of what was in their backyard. And so with that, there were letters sent thanking them, along with the 3 restaurants in Lehman extended the same discounts to our own residents. Those were delivered door to door for 4,500 homes. And that is the first of what we want to be many things within different areas of the city that we can celebrate so people know exactly what it is that we're doing. And then to keep a look, one of the things we talked about at the beginning was to have an image that we are consistent, that we are professional, and that we're a step ahead of even other cities. They're talking about that. And so design has been a big part of this, and that's actually a big part of the direct costs, is we've brought 789 in, who is doing the branding so that we can maintain consistency with our management and oversight. This is a sign that will be one of many to come that talk about the improvements in San Bernardino. They will see exactly what the benefits are, what the cost was, and what is being done. And so with that, that's a first start.
And our goal is, as you have all these capital, because the council has identified a number of capital improvement projects that will be starting this year or are already in construction and into future fiscal years. We want to be able to put signs like this that advertise what the project is, when is it going to begin, how is it funded, what the benefits might be, but also contact name if they identify that there's an issue or something, a department that they can call for service, and then of course reflecting the fact that the mayor and city council are making these improvements available to them. So again, we plan to put these around capital projects, construction work that we're doing around the city.
And that's complemented by, there's now a consistent design of your mission, vision, and values of the boards and commissions that we're working to produce, and where we're going, many other things from there, and that's just the beginning. So we look forward to coming back and reporting more.
Well, thank you very much, and certainly looking forward to the report of all the data that you've collected to the focus groups, and I'm sure that'll just continue to enhance the communications process as you find more of the things that are going to be resonating with our community. So thank you very much.
And the reason why we didn't want to taint you with that is we do want to do that same focus group. It was a really exciting, in fact, they were held in this room. All the groups were terrific. We gave them coloring pens and pencils and pictures and things, and so they were asked to be really creative, and I think Kelly has some that she's going to show to you, but we didn't want to taint your perspective. We really wanted to have you have a chance to react much as a member of the community would without a lot of pre-information. So as soon as that's done, then we're going to come back and do a full presentation on what we learned.
Thank you. Councilman Schrepp.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate it. We're obviously moving in the right direction from my perspective. I'm very happy with this. I'll make a comment that I went to Davidson Elementary School with Jimmy Tassetti. His wife Darcy grew up around the corner from me, part of the Shuey family. So we all do go way, way back. Jimmy is a year or so younger than I am, as well as his wife, I believe.
You're going to let him be younger than you?
What's that?
You're going to claim he's younger? You're giving him a break there. You're letting him tease you.
Everyone knows. I want to make one comment, though.
Yep.
And I don't want this to be taken wrong or as criticism, but you mentioned on September 19th at 4:30 a.m., old people don't have to set their alarm to get up at 4:30. They're up around 3:30 or 4 o'clock anyway.
Okay.
But
so there's no excuses then, right? Okay, no excuses.
Is that right, Roger? Isn't that right, Roger? But you did comment on the Norton Air Force Base, and I want to respectfully remind you that that is the former Norton Air Force Base. It's currently, and hopefully in the future will always be, the San Bernardino International Airport. And I happen to sit on that board and that authority, and it really is important. And I just, again, I want to be constructively critical of that we refer to it as the former Norton Air Force Base. We are very proud of that, but it is now an international airport, and we're proud to have it in San Bernardino. So I think it's important that we make that distinction.
And that is something actually that we've talked about with the success the airport is having, especially with the employment, that's something we want to do. I am going to warn you, Letty's probably going to refer to it as Norton because that's what brought her to San Bernardino.
Get a hold of her. But anyway, no, that's right. I understand it. And
but you're absolutely right.
Listen, and as I just told you how old I am, we all refer, all of us old people refer to that as the Norton Air Force Base, and so it's a kind of a something that we've all become accustomed to saying, but we want to try to practice saying San Bernardino International.
No, that's a good call. I also want to give props to the airport too. I did not know, and when all the planes were flying in and out of there for the fires, the recent fires, there's a public viewing area there. They'll be honest, I didn't know about, but we were able to go there and take video and promote that, and that was really incredible to see up close and personal. So.
To add to that just a little bit, about 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, there was a charter aircraft that actually was a commercial airline that flew into our airport. It was 55 passengers, 11 crew, and they originated in Guatemala, and then they were headed to Hawaii. But they came through our airport, cleared customs, because our airport was able to do it so quickly because of the congestion in Los Angeles. And so we're seeing more of that as a result of a lot of the marketing effort that goes on at our airport. And so it is an international airport, and we used our international terminal to process them with customs agents, and we were very successful. They really appreciated the time that they were able to get through there. They were expecting considerably longer delays if they were to fly into Los Angeles, and we turned that aircraft in about an hour and a half. That's checking all of their luggage and the passengers. So airport's doing very well.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for yes, Councilman Mulvihill.
Just going to, why don't we give Westbound, given our very positive comments, why don't we give Westbound a little bit more money? I'll move that we authorize city manager to execute a First Amendment to the professional service agreement with Westbound, and et cetera.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Councilman Valdivia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kerry, I really appreciate all your hard work, your team, and all of the good stuff that we're hearing. I am amazed, equally impressed with what you're doing for our community. Certainly, I respect good publicity, publicity that our city is yearning for, craving for, and certainly the list could go on as to what benefits you bring to the table. On the other side of the coin, as a kind of a taxpayer advocate, a watchdog on the finances, I'm going to be very bold and tell you no. The reason why, because I need to hear more. And so perhaps in my line of questioning you can answer, or maybe Ms. City Manager can help me understand. You just came to the council recently. You asked for about $400,000. Is that right? And so, and in April, we just passed, we gave her kind of a trial opportunity.
It was 200.
Say again?
It was two.
Okay, it's not to exceed.
It's not to exceed, but originally it was a couple $100,000. Some of those included.
What is a couple $100,000? What does that mean?
It was $235,000 for an 18-month contract.
Okay.
And the number that I want to confirm, though, is some of that was one-time expenses.
Kind of like a setup fee.
No, that was for the branding.
Okay.
So the branding
For the
effort is a one-time effort.
So the ongoing expenses were not that high, but there was some branding effort funding that was included in that was one-time
So have we,
expenses.
so what was the amount that we approved in April? $235,000, and now we're asking for how much more?
An additional
what, your microphone.
Sorry, an additional 169,000. But that
169.
also includes design work that they'll be paying to a
Sure.
subcontractor and the walking man, which for distribution.
A walking
So that
man?
you're
What is
looking
that?
at-
That's distribution, hand-to-hand distribution, so actually putting information on people's doors.
Okay.
We also asked them during the budget discussions, we had talked about ways to expand what we were doing, so they took on what we had initially been doing, but dramatically expanded the social media presence. So that includes all that expanded scope of service.
So today you're asking for a total amount of, how much will be spent here? You're asking for how much?
410,000 over the 15-month period. and that was
In
from
addition to
April-
the 235?
No, that's total.
Say again?
Total. It's only going up 169,000.
169,000. And where are the cost savings? I mean, explain to the public,
Okay.
how are we doing the cost savings?
We eliminated the manager of communications position,
What was the value of that?
$160,000 approximately. We put half of that back into the general fund, and then we put half it back into the communications budget.
Okay.
And we're able to move some things around within the communications budget too, so we're not, no cost is going up, but she's taken over a lot of the things that the communications manager was previously
Okay.
doing.
So again, I'm not quite there. I really do respect what you're doing. It's great. I think it's fantastic. My concern and apprehension is kind of the disparity that I sense, and I kind of sniff it out here. And I will present those to you and kind of encourage you to have greater thought as we kind of, this whole marketing is really a science. Some would call it an art. I think there's a lot of
Behavioral science.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so my question is, on the 4,500 homes, where were those homes identified? How did you identify them? And give me some insight on the 4,500 homes that you had the Walkman deliver this stuff to.
So let me just refer to you why we use Walking
Sure.
Man first and why we have a substantial budget put in for Walking Man. Walking Man is a door-to-door delivery service. We've used that for other clients in this area specifically that have been very effective, including different transportation projects and for other government-related clients as well. It also comes at a cost savings. It is cheaper than postage. And so not only is the benefit that it reaches people easier because it doesn't go in mailboxes, so it stands out from the rest of the mail, it also comes at a more effective rate. We did this as a trial. When the focus groups came back and said that the city's not doing enough to celebrate Western regionals, we had a very finite, short period of time to be able to do something very quickly. And so when we identified the homes up there, that was a much easier path. And I'll be honest, there's a point when we start working in different, for what are other pockets of the city, it's going to be harder to define, and we're going to be able to want to work collectively to define what those boundaries should be. This was a little easier because we had a freeway to our south, and then we had mountains to the north, and we had DeVore to the north, south, east, west. And then we had mountains that came in between Cal State on the east. And so it was a much easier definition of boundary on that geographics were able to play a role in. But for example, one of the things that we have created is a template to know that we're bettering the city. It's gone to Trish and to Alex, where we're going to be able to walk every time there's work being done in their neighborhoods. We're going to be able to pass out how we're bettering the city and bettering their neighborhood specifically. That's going to be really, really important. And so with that, that is something that we want to make sure that we're working with Trish on, that you have input on too, is you're going to be knowing that that work's being done in your neighborhood to know how far of reach. Because what's being done on a sidewalk may not need as far of reach as what's being done to improve a major street that's going to change the way people commute every day.
Thank you. So the homes that you delivered by what you've just suggested, the homes up there is what you said, meaning North End homes, the 4,500 homes
in
were
the
identified as the
neighborhood, in the
4,500
mass neighborhood around the
in the
ballpark.
North End. See, that's direct illustration of why I'm concerned. We serve an entire city, and that's my apprehension.
But in the budget,
So- Okay.
But in the budget.
If I may.
Well, I just want to assure you, that's part of the $169,000. There's
Okay.
$26,000 to do that in other areas of the city.
If I may, let me finish, Ms. Miller. That's my apprehension, is that I see your work. It's great. I just think we need to expand. This city of San Bernardino is not just above the 210.
No, it's not.
It's
I
not.
don't live above,
It's
yeah,
not.
no.
And what I see here is samples of everything above the 210. What I've just heard is 4,500 homes up there. And that really impacts the residents that I serve. So having said that, let's move on.
Well, hold on, Mr.
Yes.
Valdivia, if I
Yes.
could say something,
Sure.
because I do live here, so I
Okay.
absolutely feel like I represent the city, and I take that very, very, very much to heart.
Sure.
And I believe, is East Street, I know that the orange show
South
is.
of
Do you go
Rialto.
South of Rialto. Okay, so
Well-
Fast Signs is actually in there, which
The
was
who?
great.
Yes,
Yeah,
I see
Fast
it.
Signs.
I see it,
So
1350
they
South
really,
East Street.
and I want to thank you for any help that you've made, because that is a great new location for them to be in that's really grown, which is great. And when we talk about what's important for the city, the next thing we did not talk about, and why we actually increased the budget for Walking Man, is we're putting together what is a first annual report for the city. That will be done in October. And Andrea and Terry and I all collectively talked, and we received bids from Walking Man. So that annual report will be can be printed and delivered to every single household in the city of San Bernardino.
Well, moving on to some other observations, the potholes and the public work improvement projects on Facebook. My only concern, and I'd caution staff members, is to take and receive direction while it's under advisement. But that's my apprehension, is that somehow we cater to communities who have a laptop, who have internet service in their home, who have the accoutrements necessary to almost dogpile on these resources, get on Facebook, and request more tree trimming in their particular neighborhood. I think there needs to be fair balance for all communities, all 62 square miles of this city. That's my concern, is where is the fairness and how do we balance that? And somehow if this is interpreted as, well, I'm going to get on Facebook because I have a laptop and I have an internet, that certainly disenfranchises a large community that I represent, that our council should represent, and the interests of this council. So that's where I'm going with this.
Oh, and that's actually a great point, and Trish would be the best to speak to it. But when we first brought this up with Trish, and why we want to work with Tanya on this, is how do we translate those into the Go Request app? Because the Go Request app, and Trish, you can. Sorry, I just want
No, sorry, I got gum in my mouth. I wasn't prepared for this, but so we love to get input from every way we possibly can, but we still use the priorities that we set to council on how we're going to prioritize where we go and when based on condition. But that doesn't mean we don't want people not to tell us where it is. And we may have to say, you know what, we hear you. It might be a while before we get to you because we're working on the priorities, that we presented to council. But the more avenues, the better, because I want to know where everything is so I can set the 5-year plan. I might not be able to get it to everyone, but it's the more the better.
So my caution, my kind of, I think this is an opportunity for us to really kind of understand this. And my concern, and let me clarify, is that individuals who have these access points while others don't is a concern. And so we need to be conscientious of that, serve the entire 66 square miles of the community, and make sure that potholes in every ward of this city gets taken care of. That tree trimmings throughout our city are on the cyclical patterns of the CIP approved by council, and that street lights and roadway improvements are also somehow codified through council action and not by Facebook. And that's kind of my concern. So I'll leave that to rest. Moving on to the sign, I'm so glad to hear that you were going that route of public works signage. I try to count the pennies and save, where I can. Shouldn't this be more a community development, and I don't see Mr. Bloom here, but shouldn't this be a budget item appended into this, to the build project? And my other question is this being somehow reimbursed or remunerated by the community development or the Public Works Department? Because as I understand it, I don't know if this is marketing. I don't think this is eligible for marketing, and the city residents shouldn't be paying for marketing signs on a public works improvement project. Before we used to always have these public signage opportunities up, and I think it's good. I'm not dismissing it. I think it's just, how do we pay for it? How are we smart about it? And how do we encourage the either development or somehow create that as a budget plan and a line item in your public work budget?
So for the public projects, we program it within the capital project cost. We scope it out, and the contractor has to provide that sign as part of the capital projects. When it comes to private, that's a little different animal. Private development, we don't require that type of sign with. So really the sign that you saw is going to be attached to anything in the capital project, and maybe some operational and maintenance projects too, depending on how big they are. But that will come out of the city budget in either through the capital project or through our operating budget.
And it may very well be funded by some measure money that we have, or so whatever
Gas
funding
tax.
source, gas tax. So as we're using those funding sources, we also would like to, as we have major economic development projects where we've partnered with developers, once we've actually entered into an agreement with them, have them actually pay for that sign talking about the coming improvements with a similar look.
So my hope is that, again, caution flag, red flag, is that somehow this money is not, this bucket of money that you're earmarking. Is there a line item for these signs in your budget?
Just design.
Just design.
Not the actual production of the
And
signs.
part of that is because we wanted there to be a consistent look and feel so that people began to realize, without really necessarily looking at the sign and seeing that it says City of San Bernardino, begin to recognize, oh, that's the city doing a project.
Okay.
So she did the design work,
Very
not the sign.
Moving on to some other kind of opportunities, I think, is this going to be published monthly or quarterly or what?
It's monthly. This is our
monthly?
second one, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And I don't see any way on how they can contact their council member, their mayor. There's no mention here of the elected body. That is a concern to me, because we represent the community, and so what is your?
Yeah, we certainly can do that. We have to be very careful, and actually I've asked Sonia and BBK to provide guidance to them, because we do have to be careful about, we print this and we make it available, and so there are limitations on the number of them if it's got council members' names and things. So let us come up with maybe at least telephone numbers for offices and things, but again, we've got to be very careful, because we do distribute this. We have lots of people that come into City Hall and pick these up. So again, we will certainly defer to the city attorney's office and have them give guidance, and we'll be as liberal as we can.
The other opportunity here, if this were be approved, and this is a compromise, right? It's you give, we get, and that's the product for taxpayers. Is I would love to see this as a growth opportunity for council members. I mean, I speak for myself, and I don't speak for anybody else, but I have heard, certainly I can't manage my own council page. I can't do the tweets. I can't represent, because I'm too busy. I have other things in enterprise and business life and whatnot in my personal life. So I would love to see Westbound assist and help the council. We don't have a Twitter feed. We don't have anything from official public release. And there's no value for me here to consent and agree to this. More money for what? I can't somehow. I appreciate what you're doing. I think you're fine. I think we're headed in the right direction. I think that we need to make sure that council is supported in their particular town halls, in their particular outreach opportunities. Other cities do it. So let's not, let's not be kind of ghost-faced about things. Other cities do it. Why can't we? Why can't we have support services from Westbound to assist us? And that would be my request. is that let's look into it, let's follow the law, whatever that might be. But other cities do it. I say if we're doing this Me Too mentality here of let's copy other things and improve upon and not, just reinvent the wheel, well, then let's support our various elected officials in their roles and opportunities to meet the councilman and to interact with the councilman, because what better way to have that direct connection with people? And that allows me to serve my customer, which is a taxpayer, which is a resident, which is a family in my community, and it allows me firsthand knowledge. Probably they'll never tell you guys. Seriously. They probably will never unveil their concerns and apprehensions or fears like they would to an elected official, because they understand that we're here to put everything aside and serve people. Sure. I hope that's the desire of most council members, is to serve people and improve the product on the end for the users in our community. So that would be my request.
So we can look into that. This was really trying to, though, achieve the goal that the council set forth, that we get better information out to the community and respond to things. So we would recommend this evening, the budget was built around this idea that we were going to move to a contract service because we could significantly expand the scope of services, and then we can come back with something about how we can further expand that to support the elected officials after we've had some discussions with the city attorney's office.
Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good job, Gary, and thank you to the team. I know it's been a huge undertaking, but this is something that we need right now. I just want to briefly also thank the Horse Patrol. I'm very familiar with the Horse Patrol and Buttercup and Buttercup's. There you go. They actually work when they're out there in the community. They are actually police officers, and they give citations and they check for warrants. So they just don't look cute out there. They actually do their job, and I know we had an incident a month ago when the Horse Patrol was in downtown, and they rounded up about 3 people. They made 3 arrests, so they are serious.
Good.
Yeah, and they're very popular out there, and I support them wholeheartedly. So thank your husband for taking the picture.
Yeah.
I think it went viral. So a motion has been made, and I second it, and let's move forward.
No further questions. Please cast your votes.
On item 24, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Mulvihill, the second by Virginia Marquez, and the item passes 4-1 with Mr. Valdivia voting no.
Councilman Schritt.
I have a clarification. I think one of my colleagues here, Mr. Benito Barrios, when we came back from our break, indicated he had changed his vote on an item, and if I'm not mistaken, it was item 22, and my understanding is that will make that item fail, and I want to know what the impact of that is.
Yeah,
It would have been a 3-2 vote. Is that not correct?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So that would
That just kind of snuck through, and nobody kind of picked up on it, and I think it's pretty important.
As you take your next item, I just want to make a real quick check of your charter. Normally, you are required to have a majority of the body, not just the majority of those in attendance. I'm going to verify that, and if that's the case, then that item would not pass. You would not have an official second reading on that item. But let me verify that while you take your next item.
Assuming that that's the case and that it doesn't pass, I'd like to know what the impact of that is. This is an item that's supposed to go to the ballot, and if it fails tonight, what happens?
Well, you already took action on the ballot, and certainly Sonia can correct me, but you already took action on the measure that was submitted to the ballot. And so the city clerk, following your direction, did submit that to the registrar of voters. This means that this regulatory ordinance would not have passed its second reading this evening.
And you could take potentially either have another motion to postpone it so that you can see whether you can get that required vote when you have full attendance at your council, or you could direct your city manager to come back and attempt again. The only restriction you have is that you can't place it closer than 5 days, but it could come back
at your next meeting.
Exactly, for a second attempt at the second reading.
So we would
Th-
recommend.
This is, the ballot measure is two things, and it's regulation as well as the taxation.
Taxation, yes.
So it's critical that
And
we get
those
this.
are there.
Those will be there. So what we do tonight has no impact on that?
No, except that the discussion by
And
the
no
council.
except, no
Well,
except that. It
no,
will
it
have an
still will
impact.
be on the ballot because we've submitted it to the registrar of voters, and at your direction, the city clerk submitted both measures, to, the taxation measure and the regulatory measure, to the registrar of voters. So those will be on the ballot. The council, though, also discussed that you wanted to have a regulatory measure or scheme in place that was consistent with what you were suggesting be placed on the ballot. And so you introduced that ordinance for first reading. If it doesn't have the second reading, then we would not, remember, 30 days thereafter, it would be enforceable, so we will still be operating under the regulations as they currently exist. And we're in the process of processing applications now. That's why we had several speakers on the item requesting information about the appeal process and things, so we would use that ordinance. We would continue to use that. But that would mean that if it doesn't ultimately get a second reading and ultimately be adopted, then our current regulatory measure would be in place, and what went to the ballot then would be potentially different.
I'm not quite sure I follow all of that, so I'm going to need some further clarification, but I can do that offline.
Yes, we can have a conversation about it, but there are differences, and I can show you, remember those red line versions that we created between what you have on, that's currently been adopted by the mayor and city council, and how that changed as you looked to placing a measure on the ballot. So again, I can pull those, we have those early red line versions, so you can see the changes that were made, and how then our regulatory scheme that is in place differs from the ballot measure that was just submitted.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And currently, we're operating under the existing regulatory
Existing
environment.
regulatory scheme, yes.
So essentially, the applications would continue to be processed as they have been.
As they have been, yes.
This would change if this was adopted, and some of those provisions would then be introduced to the new process.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Valdivia.
Thank you, sir. This is more of a legal ease type of question, and Sandra, if you would, Ms. City Attorney, provide some clarity here. I am attempting to understand the interpretation of our city manager that the ballot measure is been ordered by the council, and that the city clerk has sent that forward to the registrar of voters. Under what provisions or authority is that granted?
So, and make sure I get this right, because I wasn't officially on board at the meeting in which you did this, but I did read that agenda. I believe it was on August 1st. The agenda item that was before the city council was asking the council whether they would want to, under the election law, pose a question in the form of an ordinance to the voters of the city. And that required a majority vote of the council.
Correct.
Once that's done, the elections official has a ministerial duty to forward that to the registrar of voters, and that will remain on the ballot unless otherwise removed. My understanding is the deadline for removing it has passed.
Is there a corresponding, well, two issues may apply, that there might be a writ of mandate or some injunction by the Superior Court that would interfere with that schedule, and B, that that this second reading is part and parcel of the overall ordinance.
No, so what happened, and again, I don't know the reasoning, but let me tell you, you actually took two different paths, as I understand. They were simultaneous. One path was to present the measure to the voters for adoption. If and when that's adopted by the voters, it will become law in your city. You also entertained a first reading. Now you're discussing a potential second reading of an identical mirrored ordinance. I don't understand. I don't know why exactly that was done in that fashion. Maybe you wanted to get going, and so you didn't want to wait for the voters to act on that, or maybe you wanted it to be in effect regardless of the outcome. I don't know, but they were two separate actions. They were two distinct actions. If you don't take action on this ordinance, the second reading, you won't have this law in effect. You're just going to have to rely on the voters to approve the one that you presented to them. Is that?
So it's now in the hands of the voters?
It's currently in the hands of the voters because you placed it there in the hands of the voters.
And what is the question to the voters? Is that simply?
It's saying, do you approve this ordinance, which is attached in your ballot or available at the city clerk's office?
And so the ordinance, will there be some caveat saying that this has not been passed under a second reading?
No?
No.
No, because it was, yeah, and maybe if I might, I don't mean to overly complicate this, but maybe there was a brief explanation for why this one was presented that mirrored it. That might help.
The discussion at the city attorney's, with the city attorney's office at that time, they suggested that if the council wanted to adopt those provisions and you wanted them to be in effect sooner, before waiting until the November ballot, that you should take action on those as a regular ordinance with a first and a final reading, so that if the council felt that they wanted to see those, or the changes to the ordinance, because remember, there were minor changes that were made between the ordinance that you adopted previously and these provisions. And I apologize that Gary's not here because, at the time Gary was here working with Stephen Graham. But if you wanted to have those changes take effect sooner than the ordinance would be on the ballot, that you need to handle that as a first and final reading with ultimate adoption.
The effect in law is that if you did the second reading tonight on this ordinance, you'd have to wait 30 days before it takes effect. So that would be October.
Right.
Ish. 5th, October 5th-ish, and the only difference would be if the measures approved by the voters, then that would be approved probably around December 10th. So for a 60-day period, you would have an ordinance in effect that would give the public notice, and they could begin to apply and work through that ordinance. They could apply, and this ordinance would apply to them.
So I'm still confused here. The regulation, or the question before the voters is, do you approve which ordinance?
I understand it's this. It's
The second
it's this
reading?
ordinance. No, the ordinance itself.
This is not changed.
The
So you-
ordinance that we originally passed back in like April or May?
No. the one-
This version, this is a mirrored version. It's identical to this.
Yes.
And I apologize because, again, I defer to the legal advice you received prior to my being here. I don't quite understand why that's done, other than
I
a
don't
timing
either,
issue,
but-
right? So I can't explain that, and I apologize if I should know that, but I don't know that.
I think it was strategically, it was a timing issue. They suggested that if you want to have those provisions in place, that you not have that 60-day window of time where potentially you had a different ordinance on the ballot. So you adopted a resolution directing that be placed on the ballot, and that's why the city clerk acted.
They may have something to do with you had an earlier version as well.
So
and that
finally,
may be it. Yes.
Ms. City Attorney, thank you for the clarification. My position is, you suggest that the irrespective of the ordinance passing tonight, that the regulation can still be on what basis? Because the order was given by council and approved?
Yeah, there are two ways to make law in the city of San Bernardino. There are two ways to make law by ordinance. The city council can make law by having an ordinance first reading and second reading, or the city council can ask the voters to make law by putting it on the ballot. You chose to try to make law in both ways, an identical law. You just put it down both paths.
And so you're saying that when we did the reading back initially about mid-July, that action allowed for and gave the authority.
On August
But
1st.
wasn't it?
On
Hold on.
August 1st.
Hold on, if I may. But wasn't it the same? It was sold to council members that we're doing this as part of the regulation to go before voters.
We
So
did-
I'm at a loss.
There were three actions that you took on August 1st, and that was based on the direction from council that you wanted to see it in this format. You adopted a resolution placing that regulatory measure on the ballot and directing that the city clerk go to the registrar of voters and actually submit that to them. You also accepted this ordinance for first reading, recognizing that it would still need a subsequent final reading, and then you also adopted a resolution establishing or placing a taxation measure on
component.
the ballot.
And that's what you just said about 2 cents ago is, I think this is hitched to the same argument that I'm making, is that
But except that
I'll
the
wait for Ms. City
resolution,
Attorney.
yeah, except that the resolution directed that we submit that, recognizing that you
I
also-
understand that. I'm just saying that there is some, I think, some wide, clear legal potentials here that may befall us. So thank you. Appreciate
And
it.
I would like to add, and this is why a good city attorney checks the charter, because charters are your footprint. They differ from everyone else. General state law says that in order to adopt an ordinance, you have to have a majority vote of the legislative body. Your charter says that actions of the council require a simple majority vote of the quorum present. not of the body. That means that even with the failure of this vote, it passes, the second reading would pass.
Let's move on.
With a, so. it would
Mr.
take a-
Mulvihill, please allow the city attorney to opine.
4, 5. She already did. Yeah, so it would take 3 of the 5 because the quorum is of the voting members, and if you have 3 votes in the affirmative, then the second reading would pass this evening.
Good, so thank you.
That's pursuant to Section 304 of your charter.
So there's no impact?
No.
It passes? It passes. That was unclear, though, Jim. Don't make it sound like it was just automatic.
She read it, and she said.
All right, thank you. We'll move on.
So we are ready to move on to the next item. Yes. This is a good item. This is the Route 66, yes.
This is item number 24.
I'm going after you.
Service agreement with San Bernardino Chamber of Commerce for the 2018 rendezvous back to Route 66.
And Mr. Mayor, just to preface, and then I'm going to have her give a riveting report, and I believe that Ms. Pinman is here as well. Remember, some time ago, there had been some discussion about contributions that were being made in support of the Route 66. What we've attempted to do, because the chamber needs to have some level of certainty about what the city's role is going to be, we've developed this mechanism so that she can rely that when we're a partner in this venture, she can rely on certain things and not be presented. It was my understanding that in prior years she'd be presented with a bill, and there were times when the bill exceeded or far exceeded the amount of funding that had been allocated to her. So we're attempting to create a very transparent process so they know what they can expect from us, and we know what service is being provided to the community. So this is a different way of approaching this. I think ultimately at the end of the day, though, it gives the agency some certainty in terms of how they're performing. So with that, Cynthia is going to talk about the great event. I think Ms. Pinman is here to also talk about the Route 66 event, and so.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present this item before you tonight. So as you all know, Route 66 is coming up. This year, this is the 6th year that the Chamber of Commerce has led the initiative for putting on the rendezvous back to Route 66. The event will be held Saturday, October 6th from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the downtown San Bernardino area. Some of the one-day classic car show will bring attractions such as the classic cruise route, which we will go into more detail in the next slide. We'll have food and non-food vendors, 2 beer gardens, one located at the Court Street Square and the other at the foot of our previous City Hall building. We will have a kid zone, and the Chamber is estimating that there will be 1,200 cars registered by the day of the event. Currently, we have over 700 cars registered for this event as of today. So here is a picture of the route. It's changed a little bit from last year, and I apologize, Mayor, but I'm really going to try not to get you with this laser. Okay. Okay, so this year there's going to be one entry point and one exit point. It will be located in the entrance in the Second Street and East Street location of the Carousel Mall parking lot. Cars will be able to enter, and they will go north on East Street, east on Court, then they'll go south on D Street, east on 2nd Street, and they'll go north up Arrowhead until they get to 5th Street. Once they get to 5th Street, they'll go westbound, and then approaching East Street, we will go north again and then make a U-turn at 6th Street, and the route will drop back down into Court Street. So the reason for the extension of the cruise route on East Street is so that we can give the cars a little bit more time to run without running into any issues with the cars overheating. And the entry point is also to reduce any traffic jams around the route, and we can control the cars coming in and out to either arrive at the event or exit the event. So it'll be safer for the public in general. So last year, the city provided support services for this event at no charge. The support services totaled about $36,500 for the in-kind services provided by the Police Department, Public Works, and the Parks and Recreation Department. This year, the same services are being requested by the San Bernardino Chamber. The services would come from the police department, and the estimated labor cost would be about $26,760. This amount doesn't cover any additional law enforcement services that may be required before, during, or after the event. The police department will be providing services from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. For general public safety, they will have fixed posts and traffic deployment, command post coverage, motorcycle officers, marked and unmarked units, and a mobile command post to ensure that the public is safe at all times during this event. The Parks and Recreation Department, our estimated labor costs are $8,074. That amount has been incorporated into our adopted fiscal 18-19 budget. We will be providing setup of trash boxes, pickup of trash during the event, setup and takedown of the event, reserving the dyno for the trash, restocking the portable unit restrooms, providing initial ice setup for the event, tables, chairs, and we will assist in restocking the beer gardens with the various beer products. Public Works, their estimated costs are $5,000, and they will be providing assistance with street closures, installing temporary, I'm sorry, I forgot my clicker. Mitch, what are you doing? They'll be providing the removal of temporary no parking zones, barricades. Facility staff will provide access to the Carousel Mall parking lot, City Hall structure parking lot, Court Street Square, janitorial services, cleaning of the right-of-way prior to the event, and street cleaning, and then access to the 201A conference room for the staff, or not staff, but the volunteer break area for the event on the day of, from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so I am here before you to request review, to discuss and provide direction in response to the request for the fee waiver in the amount of $39,834 for the rendezvous back to Route 66.
Councilman Mulvihill?
So the 39,800 is based on the estimated costs for police services, Parks and Rec, and Public Works.
Yes.
Now, they're estimated. Could it be less than that? Could it be more than that?
It could be either. It'll just depend on how many staff we end up staffing for those particular events. I want to say, for the most part, we're following the same footprint that we did last year. So really the only cost increase you're going to see is if extra police services are going to be needed or not.
So, in other words, ultimately what we're going to, the fee, should it pass tonight, could be lowered or raised depending on just what the final numbers happen to be.
Yes.
Okay. I guess, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I think.
Could you turn your mic on?
Thank you. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but, this city really isn't in the position to waive fees that, we talked before about hiring police, picking up trash, fixing potholes, and so forth. And this is just one parade. In a couple of months, we're going to have the air show. And I'm sure they're going to ask for a waiver on that if we pass this. And how about the Black History Parade in February? What about that? And a number of other things. So I guess my immediate response is that we really we're not in a position to be able to waive a fee like that. $39,000 is a substantial amount of money for the city to be able to. Plus, it puts us into a position, are we going to deny other people? Thank you.
Councilman Schroep.
I'm afraid this city's not in the position, after spending $410,000 on marketing, to not have an event like this go on. Route 66 really helped, I say, put us on the map, and to have brought it back the way it has come back, it I don't know what the economic impact is, but just the enjoyment of the community. And we should have never lost that to Ontario in the first place. We went through some difficult times.
She's right here.
I understand that, and we shouldn't have lost it to you as well. But we did, but we've worked hard to bring it back. And I don't think the air show is going to impact San Bernardino in terms of fees or not. I don't think so. That's all done on the base, so I don't think that's going to be an impact.
Because you are going to see a request from them in the coming weeks. We just had a series of questions about about the venue and the size and things, but they do also engage us in terms of fees, and I would anticipate a request for waiver from them as well.
Well, I'll be supporting that one as well. So, we're working to make this a world-class city, and one of my top priorities is quality of life, and these are the kind of events, if they're done properly and done effectively, they do improve our quality of life and do give us good marketing and do give us good reputation throughout the region. And in the case of Route 66 at its peak, I mean, that was one of the top events, car show events in the country, frankly. So I understand, Jim, that we have some issues with budgets and that we do have a lot to spend our money on. And it would be nice if we were just flush with cash and could give everybody anything they ask for. That's not going to ever be the case. But I certainly think this kind of an event is really critical to our community and to us, San Bernardino, for an image. So I'll obviously be supporting it. I don't know if anyone's approved it or motion for the approval, but I will. I see a second hasn't been made. I don't know.
Well, I was going to move for approval, but fine, second.
Okay, well,
to direct the city manager to
approve it.
Okay.
Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. I was struggling with this agenda item until our city manager put me straight. No, she just kind of put things in perspective that we need partners. And Chamber of Commerce, thank you for being our partner. I know when we filed bankruptcy in August of 2012, we couldn't do it. We couldn't. We were broke. I couldn't even have money to pay my employees, and you took the ball and you ran with it, and I'll always be grateful for that. And so I will be supporting this item as well wholeheartedly.
Councilman Valdivia.
Ms. City Manager, this is in keeping and in tandem with the direction that we've requested from you to bring it before council. This is in keeping with the spirit and the direction that we've suggested that you bring it before the council. So I appreciate what you're doing here. There will be opportunities and times that we have to entertain these requests, and that's probably the best forum, the best format, and the best place in which we need to, direct our city manager. So I appreciate the process, and thank you. And when those other requests comes, yeah, absolutely, bring them before the council so we can talk and discuss. You have in past conferences with you, you have suggested that we also need to, at the fiscal budget workshop, which occurs usually in the springtime, and sometimes if we're lucky, we'll have a winter budget workshop mid-year, that these opportunities are discussed and blessed at that moment too, so that we can appropriate the essential monies for the fiscal year. Well, anyhow, this is now coming before the council. I'm going to support it. I think this is what our city needs. Certainly an expense, but this is a valuable, attractive tool for our residents, our community. I'll be supporting this. I appreciate what our Chamber of Commerce is doing. I appreciate the spirit in which they're coming to the council, working with us, working to revive our core areas. Thank you, Cynthia, for your work and your leadership, and we thank you. This is good. This is what our city needs, and I'll be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Barrios.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to, commend Jim for bringing up, going against the grain, because sometimes it takes a little courage to say, hey, what are we doing? And hopefully in the future, it's not going to be an issue. As we grow as a city, we're coming out of a state where maybe in the past we wouldn't have done this. And I'm glad that, we're at a place where we can now. And just wanted to say good job to the Chamber of Commerce in bringing this back. And I know one day we're going to have it back, someday. I don't know when, but I know we're going to have it back. And, the original ones.
That's gone, they lost it, we don't want them back. We got our own new one.
Yes, well, it does bring, a happy day to San Bernardino, and that's what counts for our constituencies, that we are doing positive things for the community as well to participate and be a part of. And I know there's a lot of people out there with their vehicles that like to show them off, and they take pride and joy in their vehicles that they've invested so much money into sometimes. And just want to say thank you for your efforts in making San Bernardino great. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
City Manager.
Thank you. I appreciate, and I'll be really brief, but there's a reason, because I think this is an important point for us as we think about the future. 2 points. One, we are always going to have to be thinking about the investments that we make and make the strategic ones. And as you consider events, you probably want to look at, does it appeal to the broad community? Is it something that does, like Councilmember Charette indicated, said, does it give us that opportunity to really talk about the great things that go on in this community? Is it something that kind of inspires people to remember the days when we were prosperous and help them to see the vision for the future? And the events like this do that. And so we want to strategically invest in those events. The other comment that I would make is putting events on like this, and I appreciate Judy Pittman taking this on. I don't even know that she's a car person. I think golf tournaments are more her thing. No. But with that said, if we were to do this ourselves, and part of the reason why during the bankruptcy years we were no longer able to do it, it would cost us a significantly greater amount of money than $40,000. And so I think by being a strategic partner with some of these people, we have the event, it's still in our downtown, we have a chance, and I want to say that last year we got all sorts of great billing, so our logo was on the brochures and things that were distributed that day. The investment of $40,000, I think, gets us far more, in terms of goodwill in the community. And if we were to do an event like this ourselves, would cost a significantly larger amount of money. So, so I didn't school her on this event. I just suggested that she contemplate those things as she considered
And I did.
her vote.
Thank you, Ms. City Manager.
I would like to see our Chamber of Commerce president enjoy the event a little bit more, because I know that at the end of the day, she's very, very put a lot of she's put $40,000 worth of her heart into this. So I think that this is a very worthy event for our city to be able to once again showcase. People really do enjoy our event, and I think they enjoy it more than they enjoy that other city's event. So, anyway. So, as Fred said, ours is, once again, I think, growing, and it will be better. And so thank you for bringing this forward. And so I think we have a motion, we have a second, and do we have a result?
So on item 24, the motion was made by Mr. Charette, the second by Mr. Valdivia, and the item passes 4-1 with Mr. Mulvihill voting no.
All right, thank you.
Isn't that item done? Isn't that item,
Where?
aren't we done with that item?
I truly want to say thank you. Fred, it won't be complete if your little car isn't done. So you have to finish it and get it there because you weren't there.
I need to take a loan out to put a new motor.
I'll give you a loan at 5% interest, okay? But you all have to be there. Promise me. because I don't like doing this. I hate this. And God made me do that. You know, you all, I told Andrea that story. Thank you for the kind words. I truly appreciate it. And I did this in good faith because I was really hoping, all of you, I didn't know you'd turn me down, Jim. I'm really disappointed in you. We go way back. But I did this on good faith. I didn't know you were going to wait until the last minute to vote on this thing. So we've already spent gazillions of dollars, and these cars are coming in, and I'd hate to have to turn their dollars back because we couldn't have afforded to do this. But thank you very, very much. I plan on seeing you. And this is to help Carrie with her program to save San Bernardino. And people do come in. They look forward to it. And on our Facebook, some people are saying they're afraid to come to San Bernardino. And John Jamerson, who's our website person, is answering them all the time and telling them how safe it is. So Jared, remember, you've got to keep our city safe here, especially during that day. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. We'll now move
If I
on
can make
to
one
item.
quick comment. One quick comment. I am registered, but my car really truly is in the shop, and I don't know if it'll be done. So if I don't get it done, I'll sell my my registration to somebody else for a higher amount.
Thank you. We're now on to item number 25. This is the recommendation that the mayor and city council of the city of San Bernardino discuss and provide direction related to the Veterans Day Salute and Parade and Winter Wonderland 2018 events, specifically related to disabled American veterans.
Mayor, members of the council, this is another item related to an event. These are events that the city produces. They were included in your this year's fiscal operating budget, so they are funded events. Well, the reason why we're bringing these events back to you, and you'll notice with every event that we are hosting, we have been bringing them back to you to get any additional guidance and support from you, any thoughts or suggestions that you have. So,
Move for approval.
Second. Cynthia has pictures.
Well,
I'm good.
this is in keeping, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Charette.
I've never
Thank you.
experienced being passed on my presentation,
This-
so.
Hurry up.
I think I appreciate our disabled American veterans. This is a community event. This is good. What are the costs? Well, give me the bottom line here. What's the cost to the city? And
So for Veterans Day, we are looking at, and I've got to find my,
Because that was later in her presentation.
so the total event for this year is going to cost us about $30,000, $30,835.
31,000. All right.
Mhm.
And then Winter Wonderland.
Winter Wonderland, we are looking at 55,000.
Yikes! Is it grown? Has that grown?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And it's the 60 tons of ice.
That costs
That's
a lot of
co-
money.
It's
What,
pretty
what's the growth pattern? I mean, is it double from last year? I mean, are we seeing significant costs here?
So what we saw from last year is we took a component completely away from that event, and we still managed to pull the same type of numbers. And so we made the event 100% family-oriented, which was really, really great. But since the event has started, it has doubled in attendance as we've gone.
So, but what are the costs? That's my question. Has it grown? Has it grown
Yes.
Yes.
significantly? What's percentage of growth? I mean, doubled from last year?
And people are costs.
Not dollars. A majority of our costs are in labor costs.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'll support it. I'll move for approval. I appreciate what you're doing, and this is another community event, and
That's right.
this is what
Maybe
we
we
need to
can
do.
get you guys all to come down the snow hill.
My son,
To open up the
my
event?
son actually has gone down once. So
No, they're fun.
yeah.
Because staff goes out there as soon as they deliver the ice, and we go first. No. Yeah, on your belly.
Can we call for the question?
But may I ask her to tell one thing, because I think you have one change to one of these programs.
Yes. Okay,
Just
so
so you know the
this
change.
year, for our Veterans Day event, we have been approached by the disabled American veterans to help them raise funds for the Women's Cancer Society. And so what will be different for that particular program will be, we will be asking, if approved tonight, we will be asking those who are participating in the car show registration to donate $25, which will go directly to the DAV to support the Cancer Society movement. And they will also be asking food vendors and merchandise vendors to donate $40 for their fee to participate in the event. So 100% of those donations will go to the DAV for them to support the cancer cause.
Could you turn your mic on?
Yes, sir, thank you. Thank you to my colleagues. Just real briefly, I want to bring Sherelle up. She is from the DAV Chapter 12, who has been meeting with the committee since March. And I just want her to briefly talk about the purpose of the registration and, if passed, what that funding will go toward female veterans, which we really don't take care of. Please.
Yes, let me introduce myself. My name
Would
is
you speak
Sherelle.
into the thank you.
Commander McCary. I served 35 years in the United States Navy. I am 7th-generation military and 4th-generation law enforcement. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great honor to be here tonight, to be able to speak to you. I do represent the DAV and the DAV organization. Just to give you a little bit of history, I am the first minority woman to be elected as commander for DAV Chapter 12 in 95 years. The reason being for this, ladies and gentlemen, is to give better cancer service to our females as well as our men. Right now, the way it stands, they are only being seen 1 day a week for only 15 minutes. And this particular machine can close those odds and help them to detect breast cancer, not only for our women, but for our men as well. So this comes very close to me because I am a cancer survivor, and this fundraiser would help to the VA to purchase this particular machine to help our men and women veterans to detect cancer, this particular cancer or cancers at an early stage, to give them a chance to save their lives, basically.
Question, how much do you need, or what are you trying to raise?
Well, they're matching whatever we raise in this particular event, and I give you a roundabout figure. I say about, if we raise ourselves, if we raise $60,000, then the VA will match that and
Wonderful.
put it towards this particular machine that can be used to save lives, sir.
Thank you.
If I may, I do want to share with you those who we will be honoring at this particular event, just so that you are aware. So this year, the committee has decided to dedicate the actual event to Mr. Baca, who passed away a few months back. He was also a part of the committee and was Sherelle's co-pilot in the DAV. So this year, the committee voted to have 2 parade grand marshals. Our first one is Mr. Ben Munoz. He was born and raised in San Bernardino. He's a U.S. Marine veteran. He owns a local business in the city. He, in 2013, was approached to join the Hollywood scene, and he became an actor and also a producer. Mr. Munoz is very active in the community, and he puts together many events to support life-threatening diseases like diabetes and cancer. Our second parade grand marshal will be Mr. Bob Logsdon. He's 101 years old. He's a Navy veteran who served in 3 wars, World War II, the Vietnam War, and the Korean War. He served 32 years in the Navy.
Yeah.
He became a photographer for the San Bernardino Unified School District Adult Education Program. And then the honorees that will be honored at our actual ceremony this year, we have 3. The first one is Lorraine Hardick, who is an 82-year-old U.S. Navy veteran who retired at the rank of commander. She was the first woman at the Reserve Center to run an all-male unit. She went on to become a teacher in the San Bernardino City Unified School District for over 30 years, and she has then since retired and has gone on to volunteer for the CERT program for our police department. Then we have Miss Chang Trenchard, who is a 70-year-old U.S. Army veteran. She was the first woman to pass military intelligence training and was one of the top women recruiters for the Army in both the U.S. and in Europe. She went on to teach in the San Bernardino City Unified School District for over 18 years. And then our last honoree will be Miss Cynthia Epps. She was born and raised in San Bernardino. She is a U.S. Army veteran who was an X-ray technician, and she is also the daughter of the police department, our police department's first African-American police officer. So those are the veterans that we'll be honoring this year.
Thank you for your leadership, Cynthia, and thank you, Sherelle.
Thank you. Did we pass the item already?
Well, it's certainly been voted on, but I haven't announced that yet. So for item 25, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Valdivia, the second by Ms. Marquez, and the item passes 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia, for that presentation. Next, we will move to item number 26. Item number 26 is a public hearing. This public hearing is now open. Give some time over to our Director of Human Resources, Helen Tran, to introduce the first reading of Ordinance MC 1504 of the Mayor and City Council of the City of San Bernardino, establishing compensation and benefits for citywide officials. Ms. Tran.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Helen Tran. I'm the staff liaison for this commission. I'd like to have our chairperson, Thomas Pierce, to come up because he'll be joining me on the presentation. But I also would like to acknowledge the commissioners who are here. Thank you for being here for this hour. Juan Figueroa, Peggy Hazlett, Rosina Mota, Charlene Dixon, Christina Roman, and Michael Takia. Two are not here. That's James Hall and Gary Silvias. They have another conflict, so they wish they were here. But okay, just to get started, give you an overview. The current salaries and benefits established for the mayor, the elected official, mayor, city council, is from the former city charter. Since 2002, mayor's salary has been set at 50% of the salary for a Superior Court judge in the county of San Bernardino. A mayor's salary has been adjusted and implemented January 1st of each subsequent year. Since 1955, city council members' salary is set at $600 a year, $50 a month. So most recently, back in November 2016, a new charter was adopted by the voters. Because of that adoption, the Municipal Code, Chapter 2.19, requires that compensation for elected officials be adopted by ordinance after public hearing and considering the recommendations of an advisory commission. Back in February 21st, 2018, the Elected Official Compensation Advisory Commission was established by ordinance number MC 1463. Since its establishment, the commission has met on 5 occasions to discuss the setting of compensation and benefits for the mayor and city council. The commissioners reviewed compensation benefits of city elected officials in other California charter and general law cities, reviewed government code provisions for compensation of city elected officials of general law cities. I'd like to turn this over at this time to our chairperson, Thomas Pierce, who will discuss how we've come up to a recommendation for the council tonight.
Thank you, Helen, and good evening, Mayor and council members. I think we had a very hard-working committee. We essentially had kind of perfect attendance at every meeting. Everyone spoke up. It seemed like mostly we were going around the table, eliciting everyone's point of view on each particular item. And this is what we've come up with. So regarding mayors, key points regarding mayor's compensation. The commission examined data about compensation and benefits paid to full-time mayors in other charter cities. That's part of your packet on page 883. We also, the committee members, during our deliberations, requested additional information about the median household income of all of those cities, including ours, and also the salaries of the executives and department heads of our city government. The data showed that the city of San Bernardino's mayor's total compensation and benefits are below the average of the mayors in the surveyed comparison charter cities. The compensation package for our mayor at present comes to a total benefits and salary of a little over $118,000 versus the average for those other charter cities of almost $150,000. But the commissioners generally agreed that the San Bernardino mayor's current compensation and benefits are reasonable, given that most of the comparison cities are much larger than San Bernardino. So we weren't surprised that cities like San Diego and San Jose and Long Beach had higher salaries for their mayors than we had. But we did want to ensure that the San Bernardino mayoral compensation is high enough to attract a diverse talent pool and to ensure that talented individuals are not discouraged from running for public office. The commission felt that the existing practice of paying the mayor salary at 50% of what is paid to a Superior Court judge in the county of San Bernardino, and then adjusting that automatically, what is a reasonable way, given the circumstances of setting the mayor's salary. The commission also recommends that the employer health benefits contribution be equivalent to that offered by the city to management employees. So the commission is not recommending any change in terms of the health benefits. As far as the mayor's auto allowance, the committee recommends that be continued at $725 a month. Some of those charter cities pay more than $725 a month. Some of them pay less. I think the committee felt that it was reasonable to keep the allowance at its current level of $725 a month. So the commission's recommendations would mean that the mayor's salary effective January 1st of 2019 would be $102,912 and would be adjusted annually each January as it's been done since 2002. So this is not a new practice. The commission has kind of felt this has been in existence 16 years now. It seems to have produced a reasonable level of compensation, and so that's the basis for our recommendation there. As far as the employer health benefits contribution, $14,340. Again, we're not making any changes to our recommendations about the mayor's health benefit contribution. If an employee chooses to waive all of those benefits, a health waiver stipend would go into deferred comp, which is currently at $3,000. We're not making any recommendation of a change in the mayor's auto allowance, so that stays at a total of $8,700. The total compensation for the mayor, effective January 1st of 2019, would be almost about $126,000. Now, there's a note at the bottom of that slide you're looking at right now about regarding the mayor's service on outside boards, commissions, and authorities. And currently, the mayor, over the past year, has received income of about $12,800 for serving on these various regional commissions. With a committee check the city charter on this, Section 303, Part G, says that it's the mayor's job to represent the city in regional matters. So the mayor serves on several regional boards and commissions and receives compensation on a per-meeting basis. The committee wanted more information about that. And you have information on a couple of tables about the mayor's service on these commissions and also some of the council members' participation. The mayor currently serves on 5 of these regional boards, and he also serves on 5 subcommittees of those boards. They mostly meet monthly. Their payments vary a little bit, but most of them are in the neighborhood of $125 to $150 per meeting. And that money, of course, does not come out of the city's budget. That money is paid by these regional boards. One of the things that the committee wanted to ask about was, well, is this something new? And the answer is, this is not something new. Helen and her staff were able to check with former Mayor Morris and former Mayor Valles. Both of those folks indicated that they served on boards when they were mayor, and they received this sort of compensation on a per-meeting basis. Now, moving on to the recommendations about the City Council. Here we reviewed salary and benefits data on 12 nearby cities, okay, all of which have part-time councils. Among those 12 cities, 9 are general law cities, 3 are charter cities. And that data is summarized on page 884 of your packet. We also reviewed additional data that got into the specific dollar amounts that are received for different portions of the benefits package. For those 12 cities, the average salaries for the council salaries in those 12 cities, $14,951 compared to $600 a year annually for our council. So San Bernardino Council salaries are far, far below the level paid in nearby cities. Our benefits package is a little bit higher than the average of those other 12 cities. But in all, the total compensation and benefits for those 12 surveyed cities averages $34,452 compared to $23,100 for our city. The commission concluded that compensation should be for our council should be increased substantially. We don't want to discourage citizens from running, and we need to attract a diverse talent pool, as well as provide adequate compensation for our region for people that do serve on the council. So therefore, our council, the commission's recommendations regarding council compensation and benefits is that the annual salary be changed to $14,000. That annual salary would not be adjusted automatically on an annual basis, but that $14,000 figure aligns reasonably well with the average of the salaries paid in the comparison cities, which is $14,951. Now, we do expect that the salary will be adjusted in the future, not frozen like it's been since 1955. But those future changes would be based on recommendations by the future members of this commission and would require passage of an ordinance by the council in years to come. The employer health benefits contribution, we're not recommending any changes in that. As far as the auto allowance, however, we are recommending that that be reduced from $725 a month to $500 a month. The $725 figure is more than what's being paid in any of those other 12 survey cities. We kind of wondered, why that was the case. We don't know for sure, but we just kind of figured, you freeze the salary, for 60 years. You got to do something about that. So we're guessing that part of the reason that the monthly auto allowance is significantly higher than all the other cities is simply because, maybe simply because the salary is so much less. It was also noted that council members have an option, apparently, to use a pool car. We're not sure how attractive that is, but that apparently is an option. So to sum up about the Commission's recommendations regarding council compensation, effective January 1st, 2019, the salary would be raised from its current level to $14,000. That's an amount, again, that's close to the average of those 12 surveyed nearby cities. Now, a few members, I should note, also mentioned that 14,000 figure happens to be about 1/7 of the mayor's salary. And of course, we have 7 council members. And while that was discussed a bit, the Commission's not recommending that the council salary be set at 1/7 of the mayor's salary. As far as the employer health contributions, again, we're not recommending changes there. The total dollar amount annually here would be $14,340. And if one chooses to waive those benefits, a health waiver stipend would go into deferred compensation, and that's currently at $3,000. The monthly auto allowance, that's where we are recommending a reduction. If it goes from $725 a month to $500, then the total annual value of the auto allowance would be $6,000, not $8,700. And the total compensation then would be $34,340. That's compared to the current level of $23,100. And that $34,340 figure is just about at that 12-city average of $34,451. So it just came out that this recommendation would be about $111 less than the average annual compensation for the 12 cities. Again, you'll see a note at the bottom of this slide about outside boards, mayors, commissions. Again, the committee members asked about this. Our understanding is that when the mayor can't attend a regional meeting, the mayor can ask someone else on the council to attend. Over the past year, 3 of the council members have attended those meetings. Their total compensation for the payments that they get for each of those meetings has ranged. For one council member received about $2,700, and the highest amount received is about $3,300. Again, you have a handout about that. Anyway, these are the recommendations that the committee has put forward.
Thank you, Chairperson Thomas Pierce. Now back to me to talk about the financial impact of the increase, a recommended increase. With the recommendation by the Advisory Commission, the total annual increase of the proposed recommendation is $113,000. But only one half of that amount, or $56,500, is required for the balance of the current fiscal year 2018-19 budget, due to the January 1st, 2019 effective date of the proposed changes. If approved, a budget amendment to appropriate funds will come back at the second reading. So this is just the first reading to introduce the ordinance.
And Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the city staff, I think it's important that we recognize the work that the council does, and I think all too often it's easy in the community. You're dealing with complaints from residents, you have a host of policy issues that you're addressing and trying to take input from various sources and then provide good direction to the city staff. It's important that we fairly compensate them. I don't know that on our prior compensation levels, you really weren't even reimbursed for the gas that you were using to get out to different meetings and meet with constituents and come to City Hall for the meetings and things. And so, again, I understand the need to be as cost conscious as we possibly can, but I think we also need to reimburse people at a minimum for what they're doing for this community, and this begins to do that.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Pierce and Helen, for the presentation. Certainly, you've done a very thorough job of your comparative analysis, and we appreciate the hard work of each of the advisory commissioners that took and volunteered to be a part of this and put in some sweat equity to try to make sure that there's a balance in the compensation that the council and mayor's office are receiving.
And
so
all
thank
of
you.
them,
And I think, I think you said that everyone attended every meeting?
Well, virtually. We had initially someone, I believe, Councilman Barrios, that initially had
a vacancy.
you had made a nomination and then the person couldn't do it. So, but we very shortly thereafter, we had Christina Roman join the committee. And in that very first meeting, she had already had the packet in advance, and she was participating with everybody else essentially immediately. So we did have it at the last meeting. One of our members couldn't attend because they had a vacation planned, but I think everything else everybody was there all the time. And people had read the packet ahead of time. So I think it's a good committee and a good effort.
Thank you very much. Thank you for chairing it and in doing it in such a short fashion.
And
it was
Mr. Mayor,
a good effort.
They were all so diligent. We do have vacancies on other, I just want to make a plug. We have vacancies on that. If you're looking for a good career opportunity, we are looking for a few strong men and women to participate in your commission. So, we do have a variety of vacancies on different commissions, and so some of these people may be interested in serving in those vacant positions. So again, good group. I heard great things from the staff, and their work certainly was thorough. They were prepared, and they did it in a relatively short time frame. So again, just as some of those people may have other interests in the city that you may want to explore.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And I want to thank staff's support for this committee, because they did a very good job. So. Any questions from council members? Councilmember Barrios.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out one thing as far as the auto allowance being reduced to $500 a month. On the outside boards, commissions, and authorities, not everyone is a part of that or has had the opportunity to. In the 4.5 years I've been here, I've never received any compensation for any types of meetings or boards, mainly because the mayor needs to appoint you. And I think it's unfair for those who never get chosen to be put into a place where, like, well, you're getting compensated on one end to attend these meetings, well, where some council members are. And it may not seem like a lot, but I tell you, it helps. Gas, with prices going up and down, like, it does help. It helps help me, at least, to feel like, okay, well, at least I'm getting gas. At least I'm getting gas money to do all the work and all the driving that we're going to. And if it is too much, I mean, I don't want to, like, point things out that I see, but I just want to recommend that we do keep the $725 monthly allowance for council members until we maybe change to where all council members at some point in time during their term do start receiving a paid position, at least for a year. So it kind of evens out the balance there. Because I tell you, in the 4.5 years, I never even knew. So, but anyways, with that being said, I just wanted to point that out because not everybody has that opportunity.
And I would just clarify, those, it's my understanding, and I will check with all of these, that those boards are compensating, the stipend that is being received for that is allegedly to cover the gas costs and, yeah, for the travel costs. So I think most of them do try to set it based on what the estimated travel might be.
Councilman Valdivia.
Dr. Pierce, I certainly appreciate the very good work and your committee has done, and thank you for the recommendations, a deep analysis on a lot of the surveys of surrounding cities, and we thank you for your work. I won't really get into the minutia. I think we have 2 council members absent. I'd like to see if there's consensus here. Can we wait for the other 2 to come before and opine on their, I mean, it does affect their districts, and I'd like to see if we can move this to the next meeting.
We certainly can, and I just want to think for one split second, though. First and final reading 30 days thereafter, so we would have time, we have enough meetings. Yeah, so we can do that.
Just for them to allow their voice to be heard. So I'll reserve comment. I mean, I think you've done a great job, so I'll reserve comment. I'd like to see if we could do that, if there's some consensus here, just to wait for Basine and Henry. By the way, plug for Basine, it's her birthday, so happy birthday, Basine. And Councilman Nickel, I don't know where he is, but anyway.
No,
maybe he was the driver.
He was the driver to her birthday party. None of us got invited.
Right.
So everyone will be mad. And I apologize. The Mayor Pro Tem did tell me a week or so ago that he may have a work conflict, and then called and confirmed that, in fact, he did have a work conflict.
So I'd like to move to continue, please, to the next meeting.
Before we entertain that, we have some public speakers. All of those who have indicated you want to speak, could you please stand and be sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter before this body? So please say I do. Great. Thank you.
Paul Sanborn.
This city eventually can be great again. What you are hearing tonight with what they've come up with, I don't agree with for 1 minute. They do roughly about 24 meetings a year, and if you divide that out, just like for tonight, they've made $1,430 apiece if this goes through in January 1st. My proposal basically, and you're going to sit there and fly off the end or whatever, but I'm just telling you, and Fred Charette knows from the beginning that I've preached this for years. They need to get $65,000, maybe $70,000 a year apiece. They need to be full-time. If this council doesn't become full-time, this town is never going to recover. I'm just telling you point blank. It's just that simple. You can't come in here part-time and run a multi-million-dollar business. It doesn't work. I'm just telling you, and that's my feeling. And I would wish you guys would take that under consideration, truthfully, you know what I mean? To be honest with you, hey, for a long time, you know yourself, I've come down here. I went to those other meetings that we had when they put the charter together, trying to get them to accept that. But they wouldn't go for it. And I'm just telling you, hey, you know, I'm just setting, you set the wage you want. But I'd say $65,000, $70,000 a year, that's fair. But I want you full-time. I want you, when I call you, I can talk to you. You know, now it takes a week to get a hold of you guys to get an answer back. And this part-time stuff just doesn't get it in the city of San Bernardino. I'm just telling you. And the mayor's deal, get all you can get, Mayor. I don't have no problem with that. But the council, I do. I want a full-time council. That's just what I want. Truthfully, I think it'd make a big difference in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Deanna Adams?
Good evening. And adding to Paul, I would like to have educated candidates, people that at least have an advanced degree in politics. What I've noticed and observed for years and years, it's on-the-job training. It's just disconcerting and disturbing. Now, this is a classic example of charter reform. When Patrick Morris was mayor, before the bankruptcy, the voters voted on Measure D, D like David, and they voted no. That's one. And now, since Measure L was passed, the charter is no longer people-friendly. It has become the enemy of the people, this new charter. The people have no voice and they cannot vote on this charter. Again, it was Measure D. It was voted against. The mayor should not receive a raise because the new charter mitigated the position and the office capitulated the authority and the power to the city manager. So the audacity to even ask for more money with this new charter is very provocative. Finally, San Jose. I am from San Jose. My home in Willow Glen is 1,000 square feet, and it goes for $1.3 million. So that's a rich city. It has value. San Jose has value. It is the best city. It is ranked number 16. San Bernardino is 173 in value. Employment, quality of life, education, housing, and crime. San Jose has 1 million people. San Bernardino has 210,000. It's poor. It doesn't have the money. And it should be up to the voters. This is an example of charter abuse. This charter is the enemy of the people. It is not people-friendly. So this is what you got, people, from trusting all the commissioners like Mr. Pierce with his rhetoric. You have no vote. You're being taken to the cleaners, and they're trying to compare San Bernardino to San Jose. The average rent in San Jose, East San Jose, is $2,000 to $3,000. West San Jose is $4,000 to $5,000. South San Jose, it's about $4,000. I know San Jose. It's not San Bernardino, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Khan, you put in a speaker slip, but I didn't see you stand to be sworn in. Did you want to speak? Yes. Could you please be sworn in?
Well, I just want to say that I support this because it's very easy from the outside looking in, criticizing everybody here. And I know that it's a hard job that you guys have to do. And I have to admit, if we don't want a special interest to take a greater position that they might have right now, we need to compensate the people that serve the city well. Otherwise, we won't be able to attract talent. And for people to be involved in the city, they have to be well compensated. I mean, I understand that we're a poor city at this particular moment, but at the same time, we need to have people that cares. And let's be honest here. Money is what makes this world go around. And if you guys are going to spend time, money, and effort, because I'm sure that not only all of you guys have other things to do, but had to be reading a lot of material to take decisions that is going to impact every one of us. So I do agree with this, and hopefully it'll reflect in your job in the near future, and we can have a better community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I just want
City
to
Manager.
make clear, the council didn't ask us to come forward with this. The charter provided for this, and it was necessary because it wouldn't take effect until after the next election. So again, this is not something that the council or the mayor asked us to do. It was required under the charter. And it's important that we periodically look at things like this as we rebuild our organization and make sure we're able to be as responsive as possible.
Thank you. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Tom, the group, and to Helen. I did attend the last meeting of the Compensation Commission Board, and I must say, it was a very, very hard-working group, and I sat like a quiet little mouse in the background. I just was there to observe, and it was interesting in how they came to their conclusion. For once in my life, I agree with Paul. I don't know if he left. It should be a full-time job, and I say that because I do it full-time. I'm here between 40 to 60 hours a week. It's not just only showing up for council meetings the first and third Wednesday. They include events, ribbon cuttings, special presentations, a whole host of events. And if something goes wrong in the city, then my whole day is out the window. But we are not the city of LA. We don't represent millions of people, and we don't have a district office with a chief of staff and 5 field reps. We are all rolled up into one position, but hopefully in the future we can make it full-time to be effective and impactful as an elected official. I agree with Councilmember Valdivia. I believe we should wait for our other 2 colleagues to weigh in. This is something that I take very seriously. I might have a difference of opinion regarding the pay for the mileage. I think I understand the concept behind the decrease. It's because we were trying to overcompensate for what we were not getting. We also have a city vehicle, Crown Vic or a hybrid, I don't know, whatever, but I know that would become available to us if we choose not to receive the pay. I love my job, and I've spoken to many of you. I would do it for free, because this is about giving back to the community. And I just want to thank you, Tom.
Thank you. So are you making a motion? And has it been seconded?
Yes.
All right. All right. Yeah, Councilman Schritt.
Since it's going to be continued, I'm not going to say anything other than thanks to the committee. My commissioner member, Jim Hall, couldn't be here tonight. And he was happy to serve, and he spoke very highly of the committee and what was accomplished. And Tom, I'm sure your leadership, as in all the things you do, probably lent to that. But Jim particularly said that Helen did an outstanding job and was really a leader, providing all the materials. And so, Helen, I just wanted to recognize you publicly, and that's really through Jim Hall, who made that comment to me when he called me to tell me he couldn't be here tonight. He wanted to say specifically what a great job you did, and that he was proud and pleased to be on the committee, and that he spoke very highly of the entire committee. So with that, call for the question.
And
City
Mr.
Clerk?
On item 26, which the motion was to continue this until the next meeting. The motion was made by Mr. Valdivia. It was seconded by Mr. Barrios, and it passes 5-0.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, just because
City
we
Manager.
had a lot of commissioners here and we haven't checked their calendars or availability.
They don't need to be here
So,
next time. They were
yeah,
here
so,
tonight.
but we will make it
Unless
a
they want
point. Yeah, they're welcome, but I also didn't want them to feel obligated. So we will make sure that the two council members who are not with us this evening receive all the information. We'll offer to give the presentation. Yeah, and so then again, they can be here if they choose to, but we won't require them to go through the full presentation again,
Thank you.
unless they want to.
Next is, thank you again.
And they thanked me.
Next is item number 27. This is a public hearing. This public hearing is now open. This is a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of San Bernardino pursuant to section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, approving the issuance of bonds by the Housing Authority of the County of San Bernardino for Arrowhead Grove Phase 2 and 3 project.
Mr. Mayor, just before Brent starts, I wanted to thank Gus for being here, because Gus sat through the whole meeting tonight, and we actually told him that it would be a pretty easy or light agenda. So he's never going to trust anything that I ever tell him again, but we appreciate the Housing Authority and the partnership with them. This is a remarkable project. They've got all sorts of other things that are planned where Gus and Maria will come back and talk about some of the improvements to their properties. But tonight we're here to talk about the Arrowhead Grove site and Brent. But I wanted to thank Gus for being here and sticking it out.
Yes, just a couple brief comments to lay out the item for you. The city was approached by the Housing Authority in order to hold a public hearing and to approve a resolution that would give them the authority to issue tax-exempt housing revenue bonds for the, not to exceed $60 million for the Arrowhead Grove Phase 2 and 3 housing project, which is at Waterman Baseline, as you know. That request is necessitated because the Internal Revenue Code mandates that they have a public hearing held by the body in which the project resides, which is the city mayor and city council here then. And so they're requesting that we do that and have that hearing and adopt the resolution that will allow that to happen. I want to make sure you understand, too, that even though you're approving them issuing bonds, they're not going out and selling bonds with this approval. This is simply allowing them to proceed with the plan they're on. Their own boards and commissions would actually approve and issue the debt. The debt is not an obligation of the city or the county, for that matter. It's payable by the borrowers themselves. And so with that said, again, I'm just going to introduce Mr. Gus Jocelyn's here, but you did that already. So if you have questions on the project, he could probably best answer those.
Please
You're
cast your
welcome.
votes.
I put my mouse away. I'm voting yes. And it's not working. Here.
On item 27, the motion to approve was made by Ms. Marquez. It was seconded by Mr. Valdivia, and it passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Mayor, may I speak before we adjourn?
You have to.
City manager,
I do need to.
so recognized.
And I apologize, I actually intended to do this at the beginning of this meeting. You know, some of the speakers this evening talked about the shooting that occurred on Linwood Drive, and I think it's important that we spend just a couple minutes. I'll be very brief, but I did want to talk to you about some of the things that we're doing. You know, it is of grave concern to us that incident occurred. It was on Sunday night. As the council is aware, 8 people were shot during really what was an eruption of gunfire directed at multiple people and between people in an apartment complex on Linwood. We realize that this comes on the heels of concerns throughout our community about safety. In fact, Westbound Communications talked briefly about the focus group results, and every group talked about the safety of this community. You heard Mrs. Penman speak about it as part of the downtown Route 66 rendezvous. We understand that, and we take that very seriously. The other thing that the focus groups talked about, though, is this sense of accountability, and we recognize as an organization that we have to be accountable for what goes on in our community, and we need to hold other people accountable as well. But it really, you know, one of the comments that I made that was picked up by the media is that we need to be proactive, not reactive in the way we hold people accountable for their actions, property owners, but this starts with us. And, you know, we recognize as an organization that we need to evaluate our processes and policies that range from how we handle code enforcement manners, to the way we hold property owners accountable, to the way we respond to calls for service, how we prioritize those calls for service, so that we make sure that as problems escalate and things are brought to our attention, that we respond to them effectively. We're evaluating, as the council can imagine, the course of the events that night. There is still an ongoing investigation. Our police department has made at least one initial round of contacting potential witnesses and victims, and I am sensitive to the comments that were made tonight about the idea that we have people that reside in those areas and they may be fearful for their safety. So we're looking at ways that we can continue to encourage people to even report things to us anonymously, because we do need that critical information. The investigation, as I indicated, is still ongoing. We do know some things. We realize that there were many people at that apartment complex that did not reside there. There were a couple people who did, but certainly a lot of people did not. Some had documented criminal activity, gang affiliations. They were outside. There's reports that people were drinking in that area. We are aware that there were reports to the police department, and I think as an organization, we are going to be looking at all of our crime-free multi-housing programs and things of that nature to make sure that it's not a one-and-done type of event, but that we're providing ongoing support to property owners so that the property owners know how to report things to us to make sure we get the information we need and then can prioritize those calls appropriately. So we are looking at our systems to make sure that they're as responsive as possible. We also understand that we certainly do continue to, or need to continue to strengthen our police department, strengthen the other programs that we have that support that. It's not enough to put officers on the streets, but it's really to engage the community and also look at our systems and make sure that we're being as effective as possible. Moving forward, this is not the only property in our community that creates this kind of nuisance activity. And I know all of you have heard reports from constituents with concerns for properties, some of them rental, some owner-occupied, but a high percentage of those are rental properties. We're going to be implementing and have already started that process, certainly with the council's support. You've recently hired Best Best and Krieger to assist us in evaluating our codes and making sure that they are really giving us the best practices and the best tools available to us. You allowed us to engage a city prosecutor who's already had, I think, upwards of 20 office conferences with property owners in this community, explaining to them the impact that their properties are having on this community. We've identified our top 10 list. We're working to now gather information about those, look at all the calls for service and things so that we can identify a strategy for each one of those properties to ultimately ensure that they are being good corporate citizens, that they're safe places for people to live, people at the complex, but even their neighbors, and making sure that we're providing enough support to them with the intent that ultimately we all need to be accountable as we move forward. So it begins with us. We're going to be looking at our internal systems to make sure that we are responding effectively, providing the support that's needed, and we're going to be looking to people in our community to report things to us, even if it's anonymously, and then also looking to the property owners in this community to take seriously the fact that they need to be good citizens within our community and to really assist us in maintaining the kind of environment that we all want to live in and the kind of quality of life that we expect for our residents. So again, we're working on it. More to follow. We'll continue to keep updating you as we try to develop these strategies and then report on the results to you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the city manager for that assurance that we will be moving forward to adopt policies that will effectively help the city in its efforts to keep public safety number one. As Councilmember Mulvihill mentioned earlier, the need to be cost conscious. I would like to remind Councilman Valdivia and Councilman Barrios to strive to be to these meetings on time. As a result of the tardiness, we ended up spending a significant amount of money with legal services that we're here waiting for that closed session to begin, and as a result of the late arrival, we ended up spending quite a bit of money that was unnecessary. This meeting's adjourned until Wednesday, September 19th, 2018.
Mayor, I have a request.
Meeting's adjourned.